should be live.
And we're live. Hello, Internet.
So, hi everyone, hope you're all doing great. With me today is Meredith from Scattered Terrain. That's scattered with an ED at the end, regardless of whatever autocorrect is trying to tell you. So, hi, Meredith, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. So, shall we say hello to everyone in the chat and get started?
Indeed. Hello, chat.
Okay, so hello Charlene, hello Tina Martins, good to see you. Earthman Brick, Sean, and Loosely Collected. Oh, we have a new person here. Hi, Loosely Collected. Let's see who else. Dungeon Matron, lovely to see you. And Mia. Oh, and Martin and Lawrence are here as well. Great to see you people.
Excellent. Lots of people. Hello.
Oh, and Rob Evans. Hello, sir. Okay, so Meredith, where do we start? How about you start telling us a bit about yourself and how you got into hobbying and crafting?
So I've always been a very crafty, creative person. I was definitely part of the Satanic Panic growing up. I was not allowed to game for a very long time. So my first gaming experience was actually when my sister married someone who owned a comic shop.
Oh, all right.
And so I got to start playing Dungeons and Dragons in his game. We were playing third edition at first. And then we tried moving to fourth briefly, and then we moved back to 3.5, and then we went over to Pathfinder for a bit. And he was an interesting DM. There was no storyline. It was player versus DM, and he was trying to kill us every
Oh,
week.
okay.
So I've had a lot of characters. I leveled up one character once. That was my crowning achievement. So after that, I stopped playing for a while when I moved out of the area looking for work, and then I decided to start my own game with my roommate because he had been playing AD&D in second edition, so he had a huge box of all of the source material from that stuff to pull from. So I picked one of my favorite book series that I know backwards and forwards and used the maps from that and stole storylines right and left and completely just ripped off the NPCs wholesale and had a great time. Uh, and then I repeated did a very similar thing with one of the call centers I was at with a couple of the people that I worked with. We did a fifth edition game, and that taking a bunch of people who do escalation calls and conflict resolution for a living makes a very interesting D&D game. We were not murder hobos. It was very much the opposite of that. I had to try to get them to fight things if I wanted them to fight things. They couldn't communicate, or they had to be so totally twisted and evil that if you tried to reason with them, they turned it around on you. Otherwise, we were gonna find a solution to this. Everything was gonna be okay.
Yeah,
And so
I can see how that would happen. I mean, think about it. If you take a party of psychiatrists or psychologists or something, it would be like, hmm. Yeah, I think it would be a bit like having a party of engineers in a sci-fi game.
very much so, yeah. And they start building all sorts of fun acids and things. Yeah, or that would be chemists. Sorry, all sorts of fun people that you could play D&D with. Uh, and at that point, everything was theater of the mind. We occasionally would do stuff with graph paper, but I didn't have any of the cool wide erase boards that my brother-in-law had. So I started doing my own uh, canvas maps and Sculpey figurines and stuff that I would just make myself and bake in the oven. We got pictures of that
I
theoretically.
believe we do, yeah.
Uh,
One sec, let me find them.
and
I think they're one of
Oh, we
the
can look at them.
594 pictures you sent me,
They're in there somewhere. Yeah. uh, and so I for quite a while that was what I was using. And in November of 2019, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna start making terrain. And I started watching DM Scotty's channel, and I started watching Mel the Terrain Tutor, and I watched some of the early days of Black Magic Craft, the episode when he had Gerard Boom on doing the pencil carving in the foam.
Yeah.
That was how I got my dad hooked into doing it too, so that he bought the Proxon and I can use all of those fun tools that are expensive that he now buys. So yeah, here we go. These are the wizards that I had made slash cultists. Just fun little Sculpey tube, wrap it in cloth. It's very much the exact same method I used for my statues and my how to make air dry clay statue video, just much smaller.
Okay. I mean, they really look cute, especially the wizard stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and my little ghosts and tree blights and lizard men.
And
And so then November 2019 was when I started crafting, right in time for the pandemic to hit. And nobody to ever see any of my terrain. The only person who's ever played with it is my dad.
I mean, it still gets used, so No problem there, I
It
guess, yeah.
does. It does. And he's thrilled every time that I set up a map. Some of it's half painted, but it works. Yeah, I really had fun when I started doing my little halfling cultists. They were just adorable.
Okay, yeah, that's quite out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I made a huge pile of them and I started storing them in egg crates because I found that was really the best way to keep the minis safe. And it translates well to regular minis. The 1 inch base fits inside.
All right,
And
yeah,
with some
interesting.
alterations, you can make bigger ones.
I noticed that you had some. Let me see if I can find the picture. Pretty sure I copied it because it looked interesting. Because you've got a couple of interesting storage solutions over here.
Yes, yeah, I included a couple of my make my own things
Ah, here, there.
to talk about. Yeah. Yeah. Good for labeling, so I can sort my NPCs and just pull out the one egg crate that I need.
Yeah, it's very organized compared to what I do. I've basically got the box with everything in it, which
Mm-hmm.
is good because if I
Funny
need
because I spend
something, I
so
know
much.
it's in that box. But good luck finding it.
Yeah, you can see with my system here, I've got too many regular NPCs, so I have two boxes labeled NPC. I have no way of telling which is in which. But beyond that, yeah, that's about as disorganized as I've got. And so once I spend all that time painting them, I can't just toss them in a box.
Yes, you can.
Okay, I can. I just yeah. Even after watching the Goobertown hobby videos where he put all his minis in a box and shook them for a while, I can't.
So you said you've been doing terrain since 2019. That's not very long considering. I mean, you've built up quite a set.
Yeah, yeah. I started with my list of because I have all of my canvas pieces that I had drawn with Sharpie on to make the various terrain.
Hmm?
So I started with that set. Said, okay, what are the pieces that I use out of canvas? Those are the things I should make first. So that's why I started with trees because that was the number one thing I used, and then I made columns because that was the next main thing. Uh, and it's one of those things of I've spent my whole life doing various arts and crafts and that type of creative endeavors. So transitioning over into crafting really it was just a new medium, same thing. So I was able to use a lot of what I already knew to sort of hit the ground running.
Yeah, I mean, if we jump back into the images here, one sec. I think you've got some of these are things that you were doing in when you were doing working as a chef in a kitchen.
Yes, yeah. So these are chocolate butterflies. So with this, you pipe out the wings flat on the paper. You do generally you do the dark chocolate as the shapes and the dots and everything, and then you go back in with white chocolate. And we did white chocolate, and we colored some of it yellow to give a bit of contrast. And then you flip it over once it's dry, and hold them up and pipe chocolate in the middle. And then when it sets, you have these chocolate butterflies. I do another set where they're even lacier later in some of my work photos.
Okay. Yeah,
Fun stuff.
I was thinking this kind of skill would translate perfectly to using a 3D pen.
Yes, yeah, it really would.
I
Especially because
mean,
if you can see kind of on like this angled one up front, you can sort of see the texture of the backside that had been off the parchment because the inside's nice and smooth. The
okay.
rough bit's not visible.
Okay, more edible crafting.
Yeah, yeah, making chocolate bows because you take acetate actually, strips of acetate, and you cut them to the width of the ribbon. Then you put your chocolate on it, and then bend it over and clamp it, and let it cool, and then strip the acetate off, and it's all nice and shiny with tempered chocolate. It has to be tempered.
I mean, the only problem with this is that I think some of these pieces are too pretty to eat.
That comes up from time to time.
I mean, it's chocolate I'd sleet it, but I'd probably feel guilty after that.
Yeah, yeah, there have been several cakes I've taken to parties that I've had to be the one to cut just because nobody wants to cut it. This was fun. This was when we were doing sugar pulling. So you take sugar and you boil it to a certain point and you add a couple of things into it to help with the crystallization process.
Mhm.
And then you pour it out onto a slab of marble and you take two bench knives, which are metal rectangles with handles basically, and you start scraping and kneading the sugar on the surface so that as it cools out, you sort of make it into a dough.
Hmm.
And then once you've done that, it becomes sort of this hard congealed lump, and you warm it up on a heat table, which is basically a suspended bit of saran wrap over underneath a heat lamp, and it warms it back up to around the one. I can't remember the temperature range it was in. Really, really hot, and then you grab it with your fingers and start manipulating it, just like Sculpey. Though it leaves terrible burns because it's a couple hundred degrees while you're doing this,
Oof.
so you wind up
Ouch.
with horrible blisters. But it's gorgeous, and the results are great. This was the final class we had in culinary school. We did 6 weeks of truffles, chocolatier work, and sugar pulling. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but again, I can see how this translates perfectly to crafting. So yeah, you had some professional material to begin with then.
Oh yeah, sugar pulling, fondant, gum paste, it's all basically just clay of different forms.
Oh yeah.
And since my mom was a ceramicist when I was little, I grew up
Oh,
doing
okay.
ceramics and pottery and sculpey work. These were these are chocolate S's that I piped out onto parchment when I worked at Staccatos at the Fire Hall. I was the executive pastry chef, and the signature dish was the chocolate bar. And on top of the slice of or the scoop of pistachio ice cream, we had a chocolate S made to look like a musical note because that was the beginning of our logo. One of
Okay.
the photos in here is of the chocolate bar.
Okay, I'm not sure if I picked that up, but maybe we can go back to it later and
You
find
might not have
the
it. It
yeah.
was it was chocolate mousse and layers of chocolate gianduja and theatine. So it was hazelnut and little bits of crunchiness with chocolate mousse over the top. And then I made a handmade cookie cup that I had a homemade pistachio ice cream with then this on top of it. It was a really good dish. Made
Okay.
the newspaper a couple times in our ads.
Nice. Okay, one last food-related picture because otherwise I think everyone will go off to look for snacks, including myself.
Yeah, in culinary school they had several nicknames for the baking and pastry students, and pastry pushers was one of them because we had such wonderful stuff. Yes, this was the cake that I made for my nephew who was absolutely obsessed with cars. Mater is just his all-time favorite thing ever. And so I made, my brother-in-law issued me the challenge as I was discussing, yeah, I could make a Mater cake. And I was talking about ways I could incorporate non-food elements to make it easier. And he said, well, you couldn't do it completely edible? Okay, sure, I'll do it completely edible. So absolutely everything on this board other than the toilet paper rolls holding up the cardboard under the cake and the aluminum foil on the review mirrors to make them reflective. Absolutely everything else is edible.
So that for example, the light is a gumdrop kind of thing or something like that?
Yeah, the light on top is a gumdrop. I used an M&M for the headlight. I used fondant to make the teeth and set them up ahead of time. And then
Okay.
once they were hardened, put them in place. Same thing with all of the back toe structure. That's all colored fondant that I made ahead of time and let set up. And then I used black licorice as the rope for the tow hook, donuts for the tires, Kit Kats and a Reese's for the engine block, M&Ms for the eyes.
Okay. Dungeon Matron asked, are there tomatoes in tomato?
Oh, I should have put a ketchup filling.
Yeah, Lisa, we really have to get that joke jar going. Okay, jumping onto something completely different now. Some illustration.
Yes. So there was a series of a couple of photos that I put up in a row that were there was a game that my dad was doing with his friends. This is actually my dad's piece.
Okay.
And it was he had a series of cards that he and I made that were all various mostly nouns, couple adjectives, and he would roll a six-sided die and pull that many cards. And then he and his friends had usually 2 weeks, sometimes a month, to draw a picture using all of those words. And so this was the round that I decided to play in because they rolled to use the medium charcoal, and charcoal is my favorite medium. So I played along. And the words were cat, bridge, cornfield, scuba diver, tree. And so I included my picture, and then I also included the ones that all of dad and his friends did to see the comparison of just it's fun art stuff, everybody picking the words and interpreting them differently.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah, as one of the other guys, he got the cornfield for the farm and the bridge and the cats on the helmet of the scuba diver.
all right. That seems like a fun way to do it. It reminds me of the way that Miss Castellane does the
This was my favorite of the
Monster Bash
bunch.
challenge.
This was my dad's friend Gary. He did this from the Twilight Zone episode of the kid that was sending everybody to the cornfield. Yeah, it's very much when Monster Bash came out, it was like, hey, that's the game Dad was playing. Yeah, very similar concept.
Yeah, but I mean, this is beautiful work.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay.
no, all the guys that Dad was playing with were the people that he knew in LA in animation, so they're all professional artists. So
Oh, okay.
I was playing with people that yeah were not quite at my level. So here's boat patterning pictures. So this is from when I was working at the marine upholstery shop. This was to give sort of an idea of what I would make the pattern based on. So we have this plastic material that we would wrap over the, like this is a boat railing, we're making
Mhm.
covers. And so we drew with Sharpies on top of the plastic at the edges of the mark, the flat, and then there's another Sharpie line at the bottom where it wraps underneath. And then you see here it says DD to first chase, second chase, start door, stop door. So I have a line of tape just out of sight here on the camera that's masking tape underneath the plastic. And
Okay.
so on the plastic, I trace that piece of tape and label it DD. And then I know on my pattern from this mark to the next spot. And then I don't have to do anything till the next corner and then take measurements in reverse back. And then when I get back to the shop, do all of the math to actually make it once we have the fabric as opposed to making a pattern and then transferring to the fabric.
Okay. So,
Sometimes we did the full patterning, but this was all math.
basically, what you're doing here is not designing the pattern on the spot. You're just copying the dimensions as exactly as you can, and then you can do the pattern in a more comfortable environment. Yeah.
Exactly, because on the boat, generally speaking, it is very not a comfortable environment, especially in the Pacific Northwest. You only get 2 or 3 good months, and we worked 12 months out of the year, and most people didn't have boat houses. So yeah, I would take this and I'd mark out. You can see the lines showing where the fitting are above and below and side to side because we'd have to cut through. So we couldn't just circle the fitting because that wouldn't necessarily maintain. So we had to make marks far enough out that we could trace back in if anything happened while we were pulling it back off.
I got you.
And so everything was starboard was green and port was red so that we could keep left and right separate.
Oh,
And yeah, get
that's
all the
very organized.
dimensions and then take it back and take lots of pictures and then make it as best we could, bring it to the boat, put it on, use chalk to mark out anything that needed to be adjusted, take it back, fix it. And usually that.
Do you find that this is something that you use in your crafting, or I mean, this measuring and patterning, or is it something that's so specific that you
Some
wouldn't
it's
carry over?
I craft with some things. Like when I did the Sanguine Temple, because I was taking an actual map from a module and translating it straight to crafting, that one, yeah, I did a lot of measuring, I did a lot of planning. In fact, one of the pictures I included was for the altar of the Sanguine Temple,
Yeah, yeah.
all of the math like this that I
Actually,
mapped out to make it work. And
let me
it
see if
still
I
didn't
can
work if you've seen the
find that.
video when I go to put the mini into the altar. I didn't plan for the mini base being 1 inch. So I made the dimensions perfectly to match the picture. Yeah, that's the 3 in
So
sequence.
this
So
is
that was from the module, the
that's the
altar.
sketch, yeah? And these
Hmm.
are your
And then
measure.
the next one is my planning and all of the math and dimensions of what I was cutting the foam to and where I figured it was going to go. And
Yeah,
then
all those
when I
fractions,
actually made it,
all those fractions
those
hurt my
front
brain.
two and those front two pillars, I should have made the top on them smaller or put them farther apart because I had to knock them off in order to fit the mini inside.
I mean, it still worked out in the end.
So when I'm doing architectural stuff like that, it all needs to be so specific and neat. Yeah, I go immediately back to everything is math and geometry and patterning. But if I'm just freeforming, no, it's that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, like this block in the center here is like that's exactly why I love metric.
I can understand that.
I
Yeah,
can't even
having to
process that.
well, see, and that having to do that for dimensions is no problem at all because all of our cooking is also in fractions because everything's done in quarters and eighths of a cup and everything's on cups and teaspoons and tablespoons. And so that all translates to ounces if you know the ratios of there's 3 teaspoons to a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons to an ounce, 8 ounces to a cup. And knowing that, you can then do all the math in between. So I spent a lot of time doing that with cooking and recipe translation and such. So when the time came to start doing it for patterning, no problem at all. And this kind of thing is just showing how we, in the really difficult areas, we make it with tape to sort of form the shape as best we could, and then draw the lines and use that.
Okay.
As everything was photos and this, and then we drive a couple hours back to the shop. So we had to do as much as we could with what we could. It was fun. It was very much giant puzzles all the time. There were three of us in the shop plus the boss. So the two of them were the sewers and I was the pattern maker. And we'd all go out on patterning days and installation days. And they'd draw lines while I was making furious notes. And then we'd pull everything down and take it back. And then I would be making the pattern while they finished sewing the next thing. And then we'd go install the thing they finished. And then we'd come back and they'd take the pattern I'd finished and start making it. And I'd then take the next bit and get ready to go pattern. And it was a fun cycle.
And this is the end result, if I'm not mistaken, yeah?
This is almost the end result. This was the first set. When we put it on, you can see a lot of the wood there. And the whole point of this was to cover the wood during storage for the boat so that it doesn't lose its varnish as quickly, because
Okay.
the sea air is real hard. And so this was a picture saying, this is how badly it doesn't fit. And then I took it back to the shop and redid that centerpiece, and it worked later. But photos, everything was photos, so that when I came back to the shop, I would know. I don't have to remember what that was. This is what it looked like. Anytime that we tore something apart, we did that too. We took photos as we took it apart, so we knew exactly how to put it back together. Photos of the sewing machines, how to thread them so that if the thread snapped, you could rethread it without having something to reference.
All right.
Photos were my best friend in that job. I loved my smartphone. And I managed to never drop my smartphone overboard.
Hey, nice. I think that would happen to me in the first 3 minutes. Anytime I was on board.
We lost tools. We lost a lot of tools.
So let's see. Campaign Terrain said, I'll never use all this maths once out of school. Yeah, I used to think that. I used to think the same thing. And
Yeah, if you ever had a teacher that said, you don't get to have a calculator out in the real world, that's why you have to know this.
okay, and Dungeons and Chronics, cooking and crafting are two of my favorite things. Yep, I
And
hear you.
baking is really the science of cooking. Had a lot of fun discussions with the various people I've known who were just chefs versus pastry chefs, and the fact that when you're cooking, you can mess with it the whole time. Up until the dish is done, you can tweak it. With baking, you put it in the oven and it has to be right. You're done. You can't fix it if
Okay,
something's
I get
wrong.
you.
You have to start over. If it goes wrong, start over. That's when it's done. There we go. Yeah. So all I had to do was just add a couple extra inches of fabric to make sure that we had it covered. It was way simpler than trying to do something that wrapped it.
Okay, but the thing is that it's still a process of build it, go test it in the field, and then adjust. Yeah.
Mhm. And yeah, absolutely. And you can see there's two seam lines just to either side of this corner that I put in, which is where I cut it apart and put in a new piece and then just put it back together.
Okay.
So that I didn't have to fix the whole thing. I just had to fix that bit. And we went through and all of these ties that you can see. There's right next to the bar on each side. There's a little bit of silver there. That's a
Yes.
twist tie that we have. Or a twist lock that goes through. And we made sure to put them on the correct sides of the bar so that if things get left on while it's underway, those clips will help hold everything in place and keep the wind from taking it off.
So let's see. Yeah. Campaign Terrain saying baking is blackest magic.
Because if you put it on one side of the bar, it works better than if you put it on the other side of the bar. But
Uh,
I experiment.
say again, please, Meredith, because you got
And it was fun
broke
because
up.
with this, some of them we did just windows and enclosures, and some of them we went out and we built the entire steel frame just off of somebody's radar arch and did the entire enclosure ourselves.
Okay.
Oh, oh no, I'm spotty. Sorry, did you ask something?
Yeah,
My
I said,
internet's going in and out.
yeah, you were breaking up there for a second. So no, I was just
Oh, well, good.
I was just reading the comments here, and Cross said baking is the blackest magic, and evolution of baking is I said not to be confused with getting baked. Yeah, I mean baking,
No,
getting
no, and you
baked.
must do those in the proper order, otherwise things go wrong. Timers out.
They're still both good.
Mhm.
Okay, so in the meantime, okay,
So like
Earthman.
we had these things called shock cords that were used to help secure the windows to the boat. Thing that connected G2. And so this was me testing one of the shock cords I traced the part that we were putting in the window, and then I put a Sharpie into the cord and stretched it the minimum amount and then stretched it the maximum amount so that I would know how far to pattern and place the shock cords into our window from our panel edge so that when we were on the boat, it stretched far enough, but not too far. My boss was all about making things as tight and as clean and as precise and as custom fit as possible, which in most boat tops is not how it works. They make it as we just put it on and then tighten it once we get there so that you don't have to keep going back and making multiple trips. And we overcomplicated things. When I started, we were doing real simple windows, and by the time I stopped, we were doing windows that slid independently so that you could open a window and slide it, but not have to actually take it off and put it away, or so that it folded up into the roof instead of having to be taken all the way off. We were doing, I invented these little vent pockets for the top front so that while you were underway, you could unzip it and have something that had a mesh still that would let air flow through.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing all sorts of very complicated stuff by the end. It's why the big company bought us out because I had really cool designs.
I mean, it must have been interesting. It's like having that kind of job where you can do some creative something creative, and at the same time you're producing a physical object. It's like I think it must be a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, especially because the boss would do a basic sketch from the boat because he would talk to the client. He'd tell them roughly what we were going to go for. He'd make a sketch. Yeah, this is what they want. He'd hand me the sketch. He'd tell me, we want to have it do this, this, and this. Figure out a way to do that. Go. Okay. Or he'd bring me, like, he brought me the track that we made the sliding windows out of. He said, I think we can make sliding windows with this. Figure out how.
Nice.
Okay. It was fun. I was his R&D guy. This was the big company that bought us out. While we were here, they had this roll of some sort of plastic material at my surface. So I sent this picture out to all the department heads to say, hey, does anybody know what this is? Can someone come take a look and tell me if this is for you? But it shows kind of the area that we were in and how big it was. It was
Neat.
a big company. We went from my boss's garage to this. They kept me just long enough to set everything up and get the whole inventory organized.
So yeah, I mean, like uh, that sort of skills you can bring to crafting anything. It's like I think miniature terrain must be kind of easy stuff compared to that.
In certain aspects, yes. I mean, working so tiny is definitely its own challenge. But I mean, it's stuff that working in sugar, it dissolves if your humidity is wrong. Working with paint and stuff, if your humidity is wrong, okay, it gets a little tacky, but you can fix it. It doesn't make your entire thing just melt away.
Yeah, unless you forget
But
to
you also
say.
get to keep it when it's done, as opposed to cake, which gets eaten and it's gone.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Or stuff you make in a professional kitchen, in which case you don't even get to eat it.
Yeah, no. So I have to say that was part of why the guys were always nice to me was because I made chocolate chip cookies on the side so that when they came in for their shift and it smelled really good in the
Aha.
kitchen, they could have a cookie that wasn't them eating one of the things I needed for the shift. Because they started eating my cookie cups and those were hard to make. I was like, no, I will make you cookies. Stop eating the cookie cups. Because I was having you make the paste and you put it on a silicone baking sheet and you take a piece of cardboard and you cut a circle out of it, or not cardstock. You put it down and then you use one of my favorite tools, your little offset spatula, to smooth it down over
Okay.
the
Hang on
top.
a
And you
sec.
pull up your cardboard, and then when you bake it,
Okay. Can you bring it up again?
oh, tool. It's an offset spatula. So this one, I think this is a 6-inch, might be an 8-inch. I can never remember if they're measuring, might be a 4-inch. I think they measure the blade. And so very useful for crafting because it's nice and thin and you can use it to pry stuff up and thin stuff out. But so you thin the paste out over your shape at a nice angle so that you scraped it so that you just had the layer of cardstock. And you put 3 of those on a pan, stick it in the oven, and then stand there. And right as they start to get brown, you use this to pry it up real quick, then grab it with your hand right out of the oven, nice and hot, and push it down upside down over a ramekin and hold it there until it cools enough that it holds its shape. Takes 10 seconds. You use towel for that step because that part hurts.
Okay.
And so then you have to do it basically 3 at a time because you can rotate 2 pans if you're quick enough and have really gotten on it, but it's a long, complicated process. And so when they would come and pick one up and go, oh no, it dropped. We need to eat this one. I will make you cookies. Stop it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I find just cooking is already complex enough without having to, having the quick time events in there.
Yeah, it's definitely professional kitchens are their own ball of wax. But it was great because I was the executive pastry chef and there was no one that worked under me. So it was just entirely my show. I showed up around anywhere from 4 to 6 a.m. and then I was my own boss. I did it at my own pace in whatever order and random rotation I wanted. So days that I could multitask, I could get done very quickly. And days that needed more stuff, I would be there till the guys showed up. Sometimes a couple hours passed and they'd have to fight me for space. But at that point, I was also making the pizza dough and the bread rolls and candy nuts for the line and making the hamburger buns, as well as doing the night item dessert menu and the 3 seasonal sorbets. So, I was
Yeah,
doing a lot by the end.
that's a
Every
lot of
time I
fun.
asked for a raise, they gave me more work to do instead. Oh, we'll give you a raise in 6 months if you add this. Oh, well, that didn't work out, but add this and we'll give you another in 6 months. I never actually got a raise. After 3 years,
Ouch.
I finally left. But it was so much fun. I haven't had a job I enjoyed that much ever since.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound like you. Again, it was something you enjoy doing.
Yeah, I was very passionate about that.
So,
So this is my homemade DM screen from the era of my canvas terrain. I still haven't upgraded it. This is still my DM screen. It's the top of a cardboard box. So it's the flappy bit.
hmm?
And then I just tape the flap together once I cut the two ends off so that I have a seam down the center, not completely butting. I separated them so that they can fold. Big tip, if you're taping two things together, put them folded, then tape them because when you open them up,
Yep.
there's going to be a gap. Uh,
And that's your
And
campaign
so
campaign
I
map.
just taped it over with duct tape across the center and then decided that the box was ugly. Sorry.
I said I was going to ask about the
Oh,
map.
I have a delay. Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the map that was I didn't like the cardboard of the box. And so I took 4 sheets of paper and just laid them out next to each other and drew a couple of roads across them and then just a sheet at a time drew in just random map features so that this was random fantasy map on my board so that it was something to be looking at that wasn't just the shipping sticker from Amazon.
Okay, but is it the map you actually use or is it literally a random map?
No, it's literally just random squiggles.
Okay, because I saw you also had another map. 1 second.
The map that I actually use though is in here somewhere. I put my steps. Mhm.
I just picked up the last step because again
Yeah, there's
590.
one of them. Uh, yeah, I was showing area as far as the temperate zones, and then one of them was showing the steps of the what I drew first. And this is showing climate versus temperate zone because I have both so that I can have weather versus general temperature.
No, you went
So you
to
can
a
see the
fair bit
really
of detail then.
hot, dry areas are red, and the really nice, lush green areas. Mm-hmm. And so then at this point, the only part of this map that I'm using is the top right corner, that peninsula that I've started putting actual cities in, because I only put capitals, big cities on the map
Yeah, that makes
first.
sense.
Those are the big dots. I figure, okay, I got my rivers, I've got my mountains. Here's where the trading hubs would be. These are the places, the port cities or caravan routes or that type of thing. And then when I zoom in and need this section of the map, then I decide, okay, that port city is called this. And then all of the other cities in the area are here, here, and here, and go from there. So yeah, I have some cities in that top corner. And other than that, there's nothing else on this map yet.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I'm not really using it yet for anything but dad, so it's okay.
yeah, I was going to say.
Everything's been ripped out of books before now for mine.
I was going to say no point in designing it if it's not going to be used yet. Uh,
Exactly. And I might have an idea of I need something that needs to be somewhere. And if I've already filled the map, where am I going to put it? And then I included a bunch of my Dungeon 23 days that I'm including of the dry a dungeon a day, a room
the room a day
from this a
challenge,
day.
yeah.
So I
So,
figured, yeah, since I'm doing these in there with my fancy isometric map that I have the room set up so that I can, as a DM, know where things are, but then the three-dimensional one gives me a little bit more of a, okay, here's roughly the idea of the feel of the room. So I don't have to write as much in the description. I can get more visually. Yeah, and
yes,
my cheat sheet that I've got so that I could remember how to draw it as I went and I didn't have to keep remembering each day, wait, count how many over. Anything I can have a reference for, I do.
yeah, that always helps. But I noticed that you do quite a bit of planning. For example, you have this picture here, which is written in the language of the gods. I have no idea what this is or what it
This
says.
was because it was for a video. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This I went way overboard because I was doing my ghost video and I wanted to show us so many different ways of doing ghosts. And I needed to figure out, okay, I want to show how to do a bead for a head. I want to show how to do a
Ah,
skull for a
okay.
head. I want to show all these different methods and I want to show them in different sizes. And I have different color and paint schemes. So at the top, I have white first, then color first, then white, and then wash, and then um, paint after, and then add chains. And then I have the plain
Okay.
frame, bead head, skull and frame, full frame, large frame. So I also had the sizes. And so then the F's are the ones I'm going to film.
Okay, so it's like
And so I decided based on that which ones I needed to film making. And then that's what I used to cut the video together so that I could use different methods to show that parts of it were the same across the board and parts of it were different in the hopes that people could take it and run with it in their own direction. And so far, it has successfully been the best video for that. This has been the #1 video that people said, "Oh, you could add swords to their hands, or you could do this and make it different." It worked.
okay.
But it did. It required a lot of planning.
I am starting to get so these little signs are the ghosts and the like
And
plain
the beads I'm
frame and
planning on
yeah.
using. Yeah.
All right, and all right.
My little sketches to give me an idea of what I was talking about in case I couldn't remember what I meant by that later. And then marking up my steps of what had to happen on each one. Yeah. And the length to cut the wires.
Okay, and these are the ghosts in question, yeah?
Mhm. Or they will be once the
Say again, sorry.
side click on it. So yes, they will be. So it could be my delay again. Yeah, they're there. Oh,
Yeah, I remember these. These really look good.
I was so pleased with how these came out with the black painted posts. Makes them float. I have so many pictures of these ghosts. I really need to go through my camera selection and get rid of the photos I'm never going to use. Going through it for you, it was like, I have so many photos. Oh my gosh, I have so many photos.
Okay, so since we're talking about the filming, I think this is a shot of your working area.
Yes, this and in fact, this was filming the ghosts. So I've got the 3 colors that I painted the ghosts with and the wash for the bones off to the one side there with my paintbrush and my very fancy palette that does not absorb any of the moisture out of the paint so it stays wet longer and is easily washable. And then I've got the various ghosts that were at the painted white already stage, ready to be painted before draped. So this is the zoomed out beyond my tape line to see what's happening outside what the camera saw while I was making these.
Quest Bartolin is asking what is on the ghost basis. I forgot.
Oh, it's train ballast for model trains.
Okay.
I use the smaller, finer grade of ballast, and it makes great gravel. In fact, it's on all of my miniatures.
I like the idea of using the tape to measure out so not to measure out, to mark out the camera's field of view. That's a
Oh
really
yeah,
good
that
idea.
was a trick from my theater days. Our
All
drama
right.
teacher, her name was Mrs. Raven, but we all called her Raven. She had us do this on the wings. We stood in the audience and we'd walk around until we could see somebody in the back and say, "Okay, mark there. That's the farthest I can see." And then anybody in the wings knew, stay behind the tape line. The audience can't see you, so you didn't have to guess or accidentally wander in
Okay.
places. And it's like, that's brilliant. I'm gonna tape out, and as long as I keep my hands in the area of the tape, I should be on camera. I later added my center lines to help do that more because I was still drifting off a bit. We all
Okay.
have our ways of trying to stay in frame, and I found this is my method that works best for me.
Nice.
And then my very fancy phone holder, you can see there because I filmed with my cell phone. So that was I took a standard phone holder and I
Uh-huh.
attached it to a lamp base that's one of the tension lamps where it hinges in the middle.
I
And then I super
think
glued that to the end of a microphone stand so that I can cantilever it out over my setup and get my camera angle without having it on my table so that it wobbles when I touch it.
yeah, I mean
And then this is my when I do my fancy filming.
getting the camera off the table like on a separate tripod or something is was one of the first things I needed to figure out how to do. It really shows
Yeah, when I go back
if
and
the
watch my
camera's on
first
table.
video,
Yeah.
as you can see, my thing's on the table. So yeah, this is the same table that I work on. Standing on the other side of the table, cleaned off with felt draped over it. This is actually, I'm using my music stand with one of my MDF boards or hardboards pressed up against it, and then my felt just rolled over the top of that so that I have a backdrop
Okay.
so that I can do all of my fancy shots. I don't have a photo box. This is
I
my
mean,
solution to a photo
this
box.
I mean, this works just as well or even better than a photo box. You're definitely not
More
limited
work to
by
set
size.
up,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a photo box needs to be shifted around too, so it's not like it's that much easier.
And the size limit really comes into it because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing glamour shots of, I'm doing my entire board, which some of them are 24 by 18, 18 by 24, whatever word you want to say it in. This is all inches, by the way. Sorry, metric people. I don't know that conversion well enough. So here's the stand I was talking about that I have my phone on. I put a couple pictures. So the bag on the end has a 3 pound weight in it for ballast. And then it's just a microphone stand with my lamp stand super glued to it. There's a blue glove over that area because it sits right here next to my head. So if I bump it, my hair then hooks it, and then I can't come back and I can't see to unhook. So the blue glove prevents me from getting stuck to it.
Okay.
And it gives me full control to be able to move it however I need, which is nice.
So since we're talking about filming and stuff, how is it that how did you get to start your channel?
So I was watching all of the videos and I was wanting to be able to socialize because it was the pandemic, and I figured, okay, I want to start talking to other crafters. I'm an artsy person, they're artsy people. This will be good. That was my first ever video. When I exported it, that was the successful. It worked. It was done. And so I took a screenshot for posterity. Uh, it went really quickly, 6 minutes and 47
Yeah,
seconds
that's really
for
good.
a half-hour video. It was uh, And so I decided to start trying to find Discords to hang out in because that seemed to be the place where everybody was chatting. So I picked a couple people to be a patron of so that I could get
Hmm?
access to their patron only Discords. And I started hanging out and chatting. I started in Bill Making Stuff server, but that got a bit big and wasn't generally talking about crafting. But it was really when I got to Frankie D Server's Crafter that it clicked for me, and I found a group of just a couple guys that were really into doing arts and crafts and supporting each other and liking what Frankie was doing with all of his beautiful colors. And after a couple months of hanging out there and putting up the pictures of what I was working on, they all started making comments about, boy, I can't wait for you to start your channel. When are you starting your channel again? One of the guys flat out said, tell me when you're starting your channel because I want to start giving you money on Patreon. So those guys are my patrons at the end of my video. uh, and so I started my video because they gave me lots and lots of encouragement. So it's the guys in Frankie D Crafter's Discord that are entirely to blame for me starting my channel.
Okay, so this is DaVinci Resolve, yeah? This is what you're
Yes,
using
is
to edit
this?
stuff?
Yeah, so this is that first episode. This is Black Magic Craft. Not Black Magic Craft. Oh goodness, Black Magic DaVinci Resolve. Too many things use the same words.
Oh yeah.
And so this was my first episode. This was me editing the trees for the first time. And so this, for people who do any video editing, this might look a little familiar as to what I'm doing. In the top left, you've got all of the various video footage that I took. The top right is showing where my cursor is right now, the red line. And then below that, the timeline is really tiny and then zoomed in. So all of the blue in the timeline is video footage. Anything white is a transition. And then anything green is my sound. And so my goal is at the end of the video, there is no spot where there is blue without green. I'm always talking, and what I'm saying always matches exactly what is happening on the screen at that moment. So it's a lot of editing work, and this is the kind of crazy that I do when I get here. So I figured I'd share for anybody who had any idea of what this was or wanted to know what it looked like to work in Resolve. This is Resolve and my level of crazy. This is the easy screen. The next tab over, it gets more complicated, but fun once you learn how those tools work.
Yeah, I mean, editing is I wouldn't even call it a hobby. It's a profession in itself.
It's just a completely separate skill set. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did video editing growing up, so it's a skill set that I have because my dad did video editing for his job because he worked for a company that did seminars that they filmed and then sold DVDs for. And one of his cameras was very fancy and it had the ability to do a claymation setting. So I did 3 or 4 claymations, and
Oh,
that
nice. All
required
right.
doing the video editing for that. I was doing that in the old iMovie back in the early 2000s, back when it was actually still an editing software before they dumbed it down to the point that I can't use the current iMovie. I tried. It doesn't do enough. I liked being able to play with it more.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
But so yeah, yeah,
my
video editing is definitely
my
one.
camera seems to be frozen again.
Oh
One
no.
sec.
Well, while you're unfreezing, I can see the inside of my closet after video editing. This is how I do my sound footage. I spent some time recording in different places of the house, and
Yeah,
echo is often a problem.
you're a closet singer slash musician as well, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, singing was really one of the first things I did. I had my first public solo in the Northridge Mall in LA at the age of 3. I got to do part of I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas with the Sunshine Generation. Uh, and so, yeah, I found my closet was really the best place to go to record because all the hanging clothes work as sound baffles. So you don't have to have all that foam stuck to the walls. Effectively, the clothes does the same thing and absorbs all of the excess frequencies bouncing around. So it gives me a nice, just dead sound area when there aren't trains going by. And this was before I bought my mic stands. The mic stand I bought for my camera stand came in a 2-pack. So I now have a mic stand in my closet with the microphone attached to it. So I don't have to set it up every time.
But it must be a bit cramped in there, but I can see how that would work really well.
But it's cozy, but it works. And it's very warm in there by the time
Oh
I'm
yeah,
done. I always
I
come
can
out and it's
imagine.
like, oh, it's cold in the rest of the house. So usually it usually takes like 3 hours to record the commentary because I take all the video footage and I put it all in and just run it sequentially. And then I watch that sitting in my closet with GarageBand running. And I just start GarageBand and then start my video and just talk. And I just commentate the video and talk about what I'm doing. And sometimes I'll stop and rewind so that I can say, okay, I know I want to talk about this for a second. How do I want to say this? And then I take that and go through it and delete all of the ums and uhs and breaths and repeats of things and just take the good clean cut and then take that to the video. And that's when I then start lining everything up. So it takes a good week or 2 for me to do a video once I've got all the footage. But it's satisfying for me what my result is. And I know there are lots of ways that I could do it that'd be way simpler and faster, but I went into this with the idea of I wanted to be the Bob Ross of crafting. And that it was the idea that I would show you absolutely everything that happened on screen, and it was going to be a low stress. You always know what's happening. I don't do anything off screen as, oh, well, you can figure that out, and here's my finished product. It's a no. If you don't know how to do this, I'm going to do you start to finish. We have the blank canvas. Here we go. Might be primed first. He cheated that way too. But uh, between that and all the cooking shows I watched growing up, so it's sort of Julia Child meets Bob Ross. Is kind of what I'm going for.
Okay.
I've yet to pull off a, well, I'm glad this happened because now I can show you. But one of these days I'll probably, my April Fool's episode at some point.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the only way I found to get rid of the ums and das and that those fillers and stuff was to have a script and stick with that because my initial videos were recorded like that, so I'm just talking
Mm.
and then cutting out the noises later, but yeah, that wasn't working out. So let's see, from the projects you had here, do you have any particular favorites?
Uh-oh, you're breaking up on me.
Oh no. So do you have any particular
There we go.
particular favorites from the
Uh-huh.
projects you have here?
It's warning me my connection's unstable again. I didn't hear what you said. You started to say that for you, for sound, to get rid of the ums and ahs, you found a script was helpful, and I didn't hear anything after that.
No, that's all I was saying, and I just asked you if you have any favorites from the projects you have here in these pictures.
Am I back? I'm back.
You're back. I
Hello.
can hear you.
Okay, my internet is apparently having a day. You said that the only way you found to get rid of the ums and ahs was the script, and then I heard nothing after that.
Okay. After that, I asked you if you have any particular favorite projects from the ones you sent me.
Oh, particular favorites. Oh, well, definitely the Necrobotanist project, which is one that you've got on screen right now.
This one.
There's a lot of stuff about, yeah. So this was a build making stuff server challenge. It was a deodorant stick challenge. So the challenge was build a spaceship with a deodorant stick. And so I went online because I have health concerns that mean I don't use standard deodorant, so I don't get that kind of packaging. And so I ordered a stick of female deodorant and a stick of male deodorant because the packaging is totally different, and they wound up both being 2 packs. And so I decided I'm going to use all of it. And so most everything you see here is parts of the 4 deodorant sticks. And originally it was I was going to make a spaceship like we were supposed to make, and then I was like, yeah, but I could make something that could then work for my crafting. And I have the whole necrobotanist idea, and I decided, well, if we take the skeletons and do the idea of the reanimation with necrobotany, well, you could mix that with the blood magic sorcerers do and use that to then power the ship. So I've got my resin tests there because I
Yeah.
filled up the
Oh,
2 of the
sorry.
cups with the skeletons, and I have this process of it start. Oh no, you can keep moving past it. That was just a test samples to make sure that the resin was going to set up because I put glitter in some and paint in some, and I'd never done resin, so I figured test it first.
Yeah,
Uh,
testing is a good idea.
and so I made my skeletons here as they sit on the back of the ship, and it's the process. So we've got the guy that they picked up from the battlefield that they're flying over, who's laying there all injured, and
Oh,
then in the next
that's the minute that's
one,
still
which is
whole, yeah?
first, yeah, he's still pretty much whole. He doesn't have a hand because I didn't want to put the weapon on, so I just painted that as a bloody stump, and it worked great. Then the second guy I added some green stuff fleshy bits to. He's in the first pool that sort of you can tell based on looking at it that kind of whatever it's doing, it's getting rid of the fleshy bits, and it's got all of these little tubes that then connect to the front of the ship where the blood magic is happening. So him getting stripped is powering the ship running. Then you move him into the next section, and he gets little green glitter that does something. And then in the final one, he gets wrapped in vines in the last waiting bed. And so it sort of shows the necrobotany transformation process happens mobily on the laboratory ship. So it's the necrobotanist mobile laboratory, and they hover over battlefields after it's done and pick up any bodies that are whole enough to translate, and then put them through the process and drop them off the ship behind them as they go, so that by the time they're done, they have a horde that walks behind them.
Yeah, those vines really worked out well on
So,
this.
deodorant stick. Yeah, there it is. And that was before I did the resin for. So the guy who's connected to the blood pod bit, he's actually on I used wire to make a little 6-pronged stand, and I have him glued to that so he hovers.
Yeah, okay, I can see
And that way
that.
it also looks like the blood's coming out of him and matching down to where the beads are attached to the wires to go to the front of the ship. And then the guy next to him, I have on a little acrylic post so that he'd hover in the middle and not sink when I poured the resin.
Okay. I mean, oops. There.
So that's how you comment on a photo.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't do that on mobile. It must be a computer thing.
Yeah, I think it's only on desktop. I really like the bed of moss and stuff that you've got going on here.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely I went overboard with my moss once I decided that's what this was. I filled the bed first and I put him in it while it was still wet. And then I went back in and added more and then overflowed and then went around the ship and started adding because like, well, no, if this is a green thing, it's gonna be rather moist and damp. And that's when you start getting moss and mold. And yeah, I was having so much fun with it.
Okay, and this is after the resin pour, yeah?
Yeah, so this was after the resin poured, and resin shrinks a little bit when it cures. So I had poured all the way up until I reached the point of dragé, cooking term. Sorry, it's when you hit the lip and you can go slightly above it, but it doesn't spill over.
Okay.
Like if you put water on the back of a coin, you can see it. Uh, so I tried that with the resin, and as it started to cure, it changed consistency and lost the dragé edge, and some of it spilled over down the front. So
Yeah, I was going to
I
say
didn't
because
know that
you
that
went really
happened.
close to the edge over there. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, so it wound up making it filled perfectly, but there's some resin pooled around the bases of them, which worked in this case. Something splashed out of the machine. I'm good with that.
Yeah, it could happen. Yeah.
I was just glad that the glitter stayed suspended and didn't sink to the bottom. And in the other one, I just took a toothpick, stuck it into my red paint, and then stuck it into the acrylic or the resin and swirled it a couple times
Yeah,
and then
that
poured
turned
it
out really
over him.
good.
And it gave me all these little suspended globules that looked cool.
Yeah, and those that stand you made over there for the under the fish one, that really blended in well with the rest. So yeah, I think that really worked good.
Yeah, yeah, it almost disappears. Yeah, this was my first really big crafting project that I did after my purple worm. That was really the first big one. This was the next big one. But
Okay, I think we've
And so
got
then I did,
the.
of course, because I then had to man the ship. So then I made a bunch of fine skeletons and my necrobotanists, which are a druid and a sorcerer who paired up to match their natural magic with the blood magic and
Okay.
necromancy. So she is a whiz kids mini that was holding a squirrel, and I nipped the squirrel off and replaced it with a skull. He
Yeah, okay.
already had the skull staff, so it worked
Yeah, okay,
perfectly.
yeah, fair enough. And
And
again,
for people who say you can't use craft paint on minis, the green of those vines on all of those skeletons is green craft paint because I wanted them to match all of my terrain.
and the bases are train ballast as well.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Just a baggie of train ballast from the craft store.
Yeah, I like it. It's
I use it to base all of my minis uniformly. So wherever they go, they're standing in a little pile of gravel.
uh, these days I'm mostly using baking powder and maybe some flocking on top. But yeah, I like the grain on this one because I was finding that sand is a bit
For me, as soon as I
too
put any
large.
flocking, I then can't put it anywhere else.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely it's a large grain, but for me it's a thing of they're game tokens. It's not a question of needing necessarily full immersion, but if I base something like the war gamers do where they put a specific terrain area
I
on the
get you. Yeah,
base,
yeah.
okay, well what if I then put these guys in the Arctic? You brought a little puddle of growing things with you? Gravel I can buy. Flowers I start to
Yeah, not so
No, I
much.
am having that debate with I've got some minis that I'm going to be going into uh, that are all sand based stuff. So it's all going to be, very desert mini kind of a thing. And so I'm debating with myself because they have the same ballast base. Do I paint them gray or do I paint them sand? And I'm probably still going to paint them gray so that everything is the same, but it's a debate that I'm having with myself.
Okay, so let's see this one. Let's see the. Okay, this looks
Yes,
like
the Fountain of Buck. This is another challenge that was issued to me. This one was issued by the guys in Frankie's server.
okay.
Uh, I had showed them my dad's game and they thought that was very cool. And so they decided to try and make a version for crafting. And the first one that we rolled up was sci-fi fountain coffee grounds. Because we put supplies you could use and themes that it could be. And I lost the sci-fi part of it because I decided to make it for my D&D game again. It started that it was going to be metal and then it became stone. So I went with the coffee grounds idea and said, well, okay, I'm making a fountain and it needs to have coffee grounds. I'm making a coffee fountain. And so I printed out a picture of the Starbucks logo and started cutting layers and layers and layers of cardboard to match bits of the logo and then cut it in a little bit and match the logo and then to get that nice kind of Art Nouveau stair step Art Deco look.
Yeah.
And then I used coffee grounds to fill in on top of it and do the texturing to make it into a mural that had kind of a fun stone look to it. And I filled the little cup with coffee grounds. Uh, and then once I painted it up, I painted it so that it was coffee coming out of the fountain because, coffee fountain. I really had fun with this because it was another resin pour. So I put a piece of filament sticking into a bead at her belly button. And then I glued the filament to the base of the cup before doing the resin pour. And
Okay.
I tried to bring some of the resin up onto the filament, but it did not stick. So what I wound up using was gloss Mod Podge. And I just went back over it 3 times and just did a thick, kind of gloppy, uneven coat to the wire
Okay.
or
All
to
right.
the filament. And it made this nice kind of uneven rippling stream. And then I did the same thing just to the top surface and blew on it with a straw to get my ripples going out from the point of impact. So that one you can't really see the texture on, but I was very pleased with my water texture. It was the first time I had tried texturing. I left it smooth in the last pour.
Yeah. I think I'm mostly using gloss medium for that. But Mod Podge works great
Mm.
because it's also I think it hardens better than medium on its own.
It has varnish in it,
Yeah,
which is
exactly. Yeah.
really helpful.
But yeah, the effect coming from the spout is really good. So yeah, that's. So what did you get? Filament? You said?
Yeah, fishing line.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah, monofilament fishing line. It's called something else too, but I can't think of it at the moment. There we go, close ups of the ripples. And so yeah, I was just real careful when I blew with the straw to aim what I was blowing at only at the center where the ripples happen, because as soon as you start moving around, change and have them start coming from other directions. I was so happy with that water stream. I was just, oh, I was so happy that that finally worked. When the resin didn't stick to it, I was crushed, and I was so sure I was gonna have to come up with something else. I was so happy that worked.
Yeah, again, I mean, like that the effect of water pouring out or whatever is really tricky to do. So yeah, that's going to be. Probably going to be trying that sometime. Okay.
Yeah, because you do the uneven coat, it gives you bumps.
Yeah. So Dungeon Matron is asking, did you drink all that coffee as you made it?
So when I was living with my friends up north, because I just moved back out of my dad's house onto my own again when the pandemic hit, and so I had to move back. But I was living with friends very briefly, and they knew I was a coffee drinker, so they bought me a giant tub of Folgers. So I now have lots of coffee grounds for crafting. So I did drink a lot of coffee while crafting this. None of these grounds were actually used grounds.
Ooh, okay.
But as long as you seal everything really well when you're done, because Mod Podge, because it has that varnish seal, as long as everything is completely sealed and no moisture is going to get into it, you're good.
Okay, so
And since I seal everything, it's not a problem for me.
so let's see more.
I've got the Stargates that I made. Those are good too.
We'll
Oh,
get to those in
the strawberries.
a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
Ah, more vine
dinosaurs.
skeletons. Yes. So I was issued it was another challenge over on the Tabletop Crafters United Discord server. They run every 2 months. There's a new challenge, and this one was for new beginnings. And so I decided, oh well, I've recently made my necrobotanist. A wonderful new beginning would be if I had this power. I would go to a place where there were dinosaur bones, and that's what I would raise. I was kind of having a Harry Dresden moment. Those who've read the books will understand. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't. But yeah, I decided if I was gonna reanimate skeletons, I would do dinosaurs. So I made my horde of dinosaur skeletons. I won that challenge. Actually, I was happy. And I was very pleased with my T Rex because they're all a little too small, and he's the same scale roughly as everybody else. So I
Okay,
completely disassembled him. I took his head off his neck, I took his arms off his body, I took his legs and tail off, and I separated them all out and then spread them apart with the vines because the vines all have wire inside. And then I super
okay.
glue over it to give it solidity. So he's entirely stretched out to make him about twice the size he was
So
originally.
basically, bulk him up with the with the vines. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, bulk him up and stretch him out.
Nice.
Because he was so tiny, and I gave him huge hands because I was thinking in my head that whole I have little arms. But no, we can fix that.
Yeah, you know,
The whole joy of the vines is that it makes the skeleton stronger and faster and more resilient. It's like, well, yeah, then I would upgrade his arms too. Absolutely.
yeah, might as
I
well.
always put
It
myself in the
would be
mind's
rather silly
bad
to go
when I
like,
start creating these things.
okay, so let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Ah, yeah, the strawberry fields.
Yes. So yeah, that was my reference picture that I worked from because whenever I'm doing
Okay.
something, I always take a reference picture to work from so that I know that I'm not just entirely making it up. If or at least so that I know when I'm deviating, I know I'm doing it on purpose, or at least I know where it's happening so I can make an explanation for why it happened.
Okay.
And so once again I started with the coffee grounds for my dirt, and then I painted it up to look dirt-like, and then I did my mix of flocking over the top, and then I took sesame seeds and I put them in a cup with red paint. And just the same way that you candy nuts, I stirred the paint over the seeds until it started to dry, and then I added a little bit more and stirred it till it dried. I did that a couple times until they were all pretty good and red.
Okay.
Poured them out, let them dry till they weren't sticky, and then took tweezers and individually with wet
Ah!
glue placed all of the little strawberries one by one.
One by one, it's like that must have taken forever.
It took a couple days, yeah. But it was doing it individually like that. I could then have all of the points facing the right direction, and I could have some in clusters and some individual, and it just I'm a fan of overdoing things. I'm big into the little details being right. That's why I was good at patterning because I could tell if it was an eighth of an inch off and that we needed to fix that eighth of an inch, which is really really tiny for non-Americans. I don't know what that translates to. I need to learn the conversion.
Okay, so let's move on to yeah, the Stargate.
Yeah, yeah. This was one that I was looking for an excuse to make a Stargate, so I made two so that you could have the arrival gate and the departure gate. And so I made my Stargate just a cardboard circle. I decided about how big I wanted it to be. I pinned it to my foam, and then on the Proxon, I just ran the wire along the edge of my pinned piece.
Okay.
And I was careful with the pins, I think, to put them in where the cracks were going to be drawn so that I wasn't going to have pinholes out in the middle. Can't remember if I did that or not. And my DHD device there in the center, because anybody who's watched Stargate knows you need a DHD or you're not getting home. And the flat bottomed pearl just worked perfectly for the activation crystal. And so I got some of the art from the movie, from the original Stargate reference images of the cartouche that they were pulling from. So all of the symbols on the Stargate are Stargate symbols, and the symbols for the DHD match the ones on the gate. And the two gates have different symbols because if you're in different parts of the universe, you don't see the constellations the same way.
You really
So I
put
went a little overboard in
you
my
really put
geekiness
a lot of
of
thought into it,
Stargate.
yeah?
I did. I did. And so then I just used paper as the crystals for the chevrons, and then cardstock that I cut out to put over the top of it. So again, a lot of cutting, but it gives such a nice contrast against the foam because the foam has that specific texture. And when you
Mhm.
suddenly switch mediums and have something else stuck to the foam, people who are used to just seeing foam, it gives it that something extra that they go, "Ooh, oh, that's different." And also just, yeah, I like the look it gives. It was way easier than trying to carve all of that into the foam.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Layers are usually easier. And so then, yeah, I did two. I did one with this nice big pedestal where the Stargate kind of hugs the top, and then I did one that's flat to a shorter one, and the brass rat going around the DHDs, just a strip of cardstock. I used an offcut of foam that I cut at an angle to get the base, and that really cool striation on it is just what the wire cutter did while I was trying to cut around it.
All right. I really like the stairs too. I mean the pedestal and the stairs.
Well, and the stairs are angled, so this is another one of those things that I mathed the heck out of before I did it because the stairs are not square. They don't go just straight down
Yeah, I
because
get you there
the
kind
great
of
ones
like
are angled.
open up like this, yeah? As they go
Yeah,
down.
exactly. So each step had to, yeah. I finally wound up stacking them up and just cutting them once they were stacked up because it was too much. But I was very pleased with these, the hot glue that I'd put as when it's dialed and activates so that they don't always have to be active. And then when they're active, I just have a hot glue stand that I just made on the back
Are these
so that it
the
stands itself up.
are these the same ones? One sec, coming up.
No, those were my first ever portals. Those are only about this big around. And I got a sheet of overhead transparency projector paper. And I just took hot glue and I put the transparency over a piece of white paper that I
Hmm.
printed circles on. And I just traced it with the glue a
All
couple
right.
times. And then once it cooled, I cut it out with leaving the acetate in place, stuck them together, laid a bead of hot glue around the edge, and sealed them together so the acetate stays in there for the strength, but it's entirely sealed in hot
Okay.
glue. And then I just stuck it to another piece of acetate to stand it up. And it makes these great little portals. I'm going to do some with glitter and a couple other colors. But it was my test of would this work to make a Stargate? And once the test worked, I then went full size. In fact, yeah. Okay.
But so
So
is this
size
one done in this?
comparison, test to Stargate.
All right. Is this one done in the same way though, or is it a different process?
Yeah.
Same way. All right.
No, no, I did it exactly the same way. I just, yeah, I took the cutout of that and traced it onto the paper and then made it because they're slightly different in shape. So they are unique to the Stargate they fit into. I had to make two.
Aha. Okay.
But they're also semi-transparent because of that. So I put a flashlight behind it for all of the footage that I filmed for the short that I made so that when it comes
Ah,
on, it actually
yes.
does
Yeah.
have a glow to it. So I was just very careful in all of my footage to cut it right before you could see the flashlight in the spin.
So let's see. I'm going to skip over this one because I think we're going to
Yeah,
see
you
a
will
lot
see
more
it
of
a
him
bit
later.
later.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got my cardboard shelves that I made there. It's
Oh
one of
yeah.
my fun storage things of this is my dining room. Well, technically this is my dad's dining room. And the kitchen is right there and the living room is right there. So this is everything. So I have these shelves behind me, which as some people have noticed have my kitchen equipment also on the shelves behind me here because this is where the kitchen supplies are. This also used to be where all the cookbooks and more kitchen supplies were, but they're in boxes in the garage. So I got myself a couple of these plastic rolling stands that work real well, but they're expensive. And
Plastic roll.
so
Wait, which was?
I made cardboard shelves. Oh,
Ah, sorry.
plastic
Ah, okay,
is
okay, I got you.
just Home Depot, and I got two of them. And at the center line here, from the small one to the big one, I just set them on top of each other and then wrapped it with packing tape because I'm never going to move
So
them,
it's not ever
and
going
so they
to
don't
fall
need to
over, yeah.
be sturdy. But yeah, but so at that point, those are expensive, and so getting several of those adds up. So I started using cardboard boxes. So I take the cardboard box and I open it, and then I trace the line on the inside of where I want the shelves to be, and then use a second double layered cardboard to make the shelves. And I secure them with both white glue and hot glue so that they're sturdy as I
Okay,
can
they're
make
not
them.
going anywhere then.
I also have pins stuck in them from the side going
Yep.
into the corrugation from the outside, but I don't
Just
think
in
that's
case, yeah.
doing much, just in case. And then I just make these custom cardboard inserts, and that way, as soon as I need something, I can just grab the insert and bring it out and have what I need. Grab the pieces out that I need, and then put the insert back, and I can just set these on the table, build my map, put my map away, and everything's labeled, everything's in a container that moves. I'm inventing cardboard shelving systems as quickly as I can. But it works wonderfully, and it stores everything so that I have all of my stone tiles in one place and all of my wood tiles in one place and all of my bushes in one, and they're all customizable to whatever height I need them to be for whatever project I'm working
Oh yeah,
on.
for sure.
And as you can see, I've got lots of stuff stuck in there without any drawers, just because it's like, it's not going to stay here forever, but I need somewhere to put this right now. So there we go. It's a shelf and a drawer.
Okay, and what about this?
And
It's
that's
like
for my minis, because I've got a shelf of work in progress minis, but I got some of my Kickstarters back because a couple years ago I funded a couple, and then they arrived and I found myself buried in minis. So this is cardboard circles from frozen pizza
right?
and toilet paper rolls, and I have glued them together with a strip of white paper, and I saturated the white paper in full strength white glue before putting it around the edge of the cardboard circle. So it's
Okay.
semi-flexible, but the minis can bump against it but not fall out. And so they're not full-length paper towel or toilet paper rolls anymore. I cut them down a little, and it gives me a nice way of having 3 stacks of minis without having to take up quite as much table space. So
Okay,
space
yeah.
saving as much as I can.
It's a great idea. Right?
And on the top, I have a little handle in the center that you can't really see because it's just I took one of the toilet paper tubes and cut it and rolled it on itself and then stuck it down. So I have a really nice, sturdy, strong cardboard handle coming out the top.
So you can pick up the whole thing from that and move it, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
This is
And I
this,
have two
this
of
is
these
super
actually, but I
useful,
didn't
yeah.
put the paper strips around the first one.
No, this
So
is
when
super
I try and
useful.
move it, things fall off.
So let's
The
see.
other thing, as far as tools, I find super useful. I have some things that are holdouts from my upholstery days, surgical tools, because the guy who ran the shop, his wife worked for Johnson and Johnson, and so when she found out I have hand issues, she got me some of these for the shop. And the ones she got me didn't have this in the middle locking bit. That part gets a little annoying,
Hmm?
but they're grippers and they have teeth to them. It's for surgery. I can't think what they're called at the moment. They have
No idea.
straight ones and they have bent nose ones. And these are incredibly helpful. If you have trouble holding little things, you can use this to grip the tool that you want and then hold this as the tool that you're holding, and you can get a better grip on it. So as someone who has hand issues, these are one of my favorite tools. Highly recommend them. You can also get the tweezers surgically, and they tend to be bigger and longer so they can get into jars and stuff.
So let's see. Evolution of
My other
gaming.
recommended tool we're in this section is my wax pencil. This is a nail art tool, and it's wax at the tip, and you can pick things up with it. So when you're doing little rhinestone studs, this is a lifesaver. It picks it up like it's nothing.
Okay. Evolution of gaming said they might be called forceps.
Yes, thank you. That is what they're called.
Okay.
So
Also
if
said.
anybody wants to find them, that's forceps.
Yep. Also said, bet that would be nice made out of MDF. Definitely, just MDF
Yeah,
is just a lot messier to make at home and if you don't have a bench or tools or stuff like that. But I mean,
Yeah, if anybody has a laser cutter and wants to work with me on patenting this design to have people buy and build their own MDF shelves, I am perfectly willing to work out some sort of patterning copyright thing.
okay, you heard the lady. But now back to the pile of images. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like these training dummies.
Yes. So this is the episode that I'm currently working on. This will be the next episode coming out. It's a callback to my training dummies episode, but going into a series of okay, this is fantasy. Humans would not be the only thing they'd need to train against. So I started figuring what would be the monsters that they'd train for. And the Beholder just seemed like such a great, obvious first one to go to. So I completely ran with Wylock's idea of doing the ping pong, but instead I got a plastic golf ball from the Dollar
Hmm.
Tree, and it's a little bit smaller than a ping pong ball, and it's bumpy, so it gives it kind of a not quite the same as if you have the ping pong beholder, but close enough. And then I just did all of the little heads on top the same way, or the eyes the same way that I do the regular training dummy head, and then just jammed them all into the ping pong ball. I made holes first with a nail, and then just glued them in place after following all the same steps I did before. So it's going to be a video where some of it I might be able to kind of speed through a little. We'll see. I might decide to stop and talk about other features about what I'm doing. Uh,
So let's see. If I'm not
but
mistaken,
that's yeah, that's a,
we
yeah.
may have other pictures
And
of
at some
the
point, I'll make a dragon.
a dragon training dummy.
Yeah,
All
because I
right.
think that would just be adorable. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. It might be like a stack of crates with a blanket over it, kind of a thing, and a big stick with a ball, but something that's dragon-like.
Okay, and these are the
Yeah, there
normal
was the
heroes, yeah?
original training dummies. Yeah. Yeah, and as far as I know, I came up with this idea. I don't know that anybody else is doing this yet. It's just a skewer and hot glue for the shape with the toilet paper or paper towel over it, tied in place with a little bit of string, washer on the bottom.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen them anyone make training dummies. And what's that exactly? It's just a bead or something like that?
Hot glue.
Ah, just hot
It's
glue.
all hot
Okay.
glue.
All right.
So I work with my hot glue to because I love sculpting with hot glue. It's a great medium for that. So I just work. You have a cup of cold water next to you while you're working, and as you work with the glue, anytime that you get it where you want it, you stick it in the cold water, and that locks it in place.
Ah,
And then
okay.
you can add more glue to it and then stick it in the cold water.
Ha.
So the body, as you can see, it has kind of that teardrop shape to it.
Yeah.
That's because I put the glue on and then sort of just spun it in my fingers and waited for the glue to drip a little bit. So you can see I've got pencil markings. I'm trying to show it on my screen. I've got pencil markings by the neck. So I knew where to stop for the head and where to stop for the body. And there is a line where the glue has stopped. But basically, I
Okay,
put it on
I
sideways, filled in
think
the space, and
it's
then let it
just
drip
barely
a
visible
little
over here, yeah.
and then solidify it. Yeah, yeah, it's real hard to see. Uh,
Nice.
And so it doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes you have to pull it off and do it again. Uh, but it's how I did all of the blood magic for my necrobotanist's laboratory. All of that was hot glue.
Okay. So I also wanted to ask you about this because it looks really good with all the texturing and stuff, but I don't remember where you use this.
Because you haven't seen it yet. This is my
Ah,
boats that
okay.
I'm working on. I've been working on these for like 2 years now. I keep putting them aside for other things. These are the doors to the captain's cabin on the bigger, fancier of the two boats. So what I did is this is an overlay. So the one photo to the side should be the pattern that I cut out for this overlay that I laid over the top. So I drew out what I wanted the door to look like.
Mhm.
And then anywhere that doesn't have the wood grain or the doors, so the vertical lines and all of the curved lines, I left those connected. I cut out everything in between. So I have an overlay of just the wooden top. Then I went into the boat under that, did all of the carving for the wood textures, and I marked out, if you can see those vertical slits, that was where I reached through and poked to the foam so that I could tell where I needed my textures to stop. So that all of my wood textures running in various
Uh,
arcs away from the door are in the background foam, and then I have other foam
okay, you mean these two little
textured on top of
slits?
it. So I have
Uh,
like,
okay.
mhm. Yeah. And so as you can see, I have the wood grains looking angled, and then on the rest of the boat, it runs normally
Yeah.
vertical. So all of the angling of the wood grain carvings are all on the one piece, and then the
Aha.
pop
All
out
right.
lays on top.
Nice.
And then the doors are a separate piece that are going to go in with fancy little handles. The doors themselves are a pain because as you can see, I designed French doors there. And so I wound up cutting little tiny slivers of foam and gluing them to white paper in the
Ooh.
orientation of the door because I could not cut it to have the holes work. In fact, is it somewhere I could grab easily? Yeah, let me grab it.
Okay, one sec.
This is the upside to only having a very small space. I also made all of my ladders for the boat ahead of time because I knew they were going to be hard. So I've got all of these little step stool
Oh,
ladders.
all right.
It, these are the doors to the fancy captain's cabin. So that level of foam was very, very difficult to try and work with.
That's crazy
There was a
thing.
lot
That's crazy
of
thing.
just
It's like
yeah,
it's like,
gluing pieces. Yeah, crazy, crazy thin. I proxoned off little tiny pieces and then cut them into little tiny strips and then glued them all together.
huh.
But it's going to be beautiful when it's done. And some of these will wind up being the handles. I'm not sure exactly which ones it'll be, but some sort of
Uh,
fancy little wire,
okay.
fancy little wire thing. Because I also, one of the things I did when I was younger was I made a bunch of wire jewelry. So I have a bunch of the knowing how to do the spinning and
Uh-huh.
twisting and various
Okay.
wire shapes. Lots of cross crafting available.
Yeah, it's good for
Art
you.
is art. It doesn't really matter what the medium is.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so let's see. Was this one of your canvas backgrounds? Sorry, words or
So
whatever?
this was early in the pandemic. This was I was making terrain. I had a couple of boards that I had gotten that are actually these are legitimate like grid board hexers. That's the name of the company. It's on the
Hmm.
shelf behind me. So they're like fold out cardboard sheets that have reversible patterns. And so these are I'd made some dungeon stackers and I had made my dwarven pillars. Those were my second set of pillars. And so I made my little house plants. I love my little bead house plants. I was so pleased with those. And so Dad and I were looking for things to do during the pandemic, and I hadn't yet talked him into playing D&D. So I set up what I called the Diamond Dash. And so it was we each had our player character at the start, and we each had a die, and we rolled and moved that many spaces, and it was a race to the finish line where I had a pile of fake diamonds stacked up. Uh, and so then I took all my extra minis and my original columns and set them on the side there. They were the audience off to the left. And, there was I won the first Diamond Dash, so that was my photo of victory. So we did that a couple times during the early days of the pandemic. As I made more terrain, we kept expanding it. We got to 4 boards long by the time it was
Whoa.
done. Because I had my stairs up and stairs down. So we had a place where you go underground here and then pop out over there so we can keep going. And I had it go into the void of white where you were just jumping between dungeon tiles because I'd run out of things to fill the board with. We were having a lot of fun looking for things to do while locked inside the house
Yeah, I
together.
totally get you. I totally get that.
Yeah, the diamond dash was fun.
Okay, and here we have some
And these are my
stone
rock
elementals.
smells.
Yeah. Oh, rock golems, okay.
Yeah. So the two little ones were the ones I made first, and it's because I was making my dungeon tiles and I had all this scrap left over, and I figured, oh, okay, well, first I made a couple of archways, gluing the scrap pieces
Hmm.
together, and then I had even smaller bits of scrap, so I started gluing the smaller bits of scrap together, and so that's entirely just foam and hot glue, and a little bit of ballast. And so then when I made the bigger guy, I decided to go a little more careful on it and added a little more ballast in like his joints and stuff, so he's a little cooler.
Hmm.
But it was a fun experiment with what can I do with my foam scraps. It was shortly after that that I then made the chain golems, which I'm quite pleased with, and that's one that I don't think I've seen a lot of other people doing. And I did very much the same thing. I made a couple of shapes to make
Hmm.
the legs and the arms and the torso and head out of Sculpey, or that might have been air dry clay. And then I just started with the head, wrapped it in chain, attached the body to it, kept wrapping down, and then attached an arm wrapped out and back, and the other arm, and wrapped it all up, pulled a bunch of chain at the feet, went back and draped a couple extra pieces over. So you can see there's a lot of hot glue and stuff seeping between the cracks, but it
In a
kind of
couple of
looks
spots, yeah, but
ectoplasmic, so I'm good with it. Yeah.
it's not really the
I
thing
did
that
black
springs to
wash
the eye.
over it, but other than that, these are completely just raw jewelry chain, hot glue, a little black wash. Nice and simple.
That works.
Some of the chains rattle when you move them because they're dangly.
Of course, because it's not all held in place here.
Mm.
Just adds to the ambience.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I think these are some of your painted
This was
miniatures.
one of my early minis. Yeah, I had three or four minis that I got as my first batch of minis when I went to the game store for the first time to buy D&D stuff as opposed to making it myself. And so she was in that batch. So that was when I was trying to mix my own skin tones. It came out very green, but it works.
All right.
I was trying to make sure that all of my minis had different colors, and I had done one that was all blues and one that was all greens and one that was yellows and purples. I was like, okay, well, so she's gonna get pink because
All right.
that's I'm to that point in the color scheme. This was legitimately the first mini I ever painted. She was the very first. And I mentioned this the other day in chat. I want to get hold of another copy of that mini and redo it. Because I don't want to repaint my original mini, but I want to do her again because I can do so much better than that now. I mean, she's not terrible, but I could pick
I
out
mean,
the
you got the
crosses and I could
you
pick
got
out some
the
details around the bottom.
you got the eyes painted. So yeah.
Yeah, I did paint the eyes. Yeah, yeah. That was part of when I was figuring out the best way to do eyes is paint the left eye first and paint it upside down. So instead of trying to hold the mini and paint the face, flip the mini in your hand, paint the left eye, then hold it the correct way and paint the right eye because it's way easier to match the right eye upright than it is to try and paint the left eye to match the right
Hmm.
eye.
Okay, I'll have to try it next time I paint eyes on a mini.
It's a method to my madness. Your results may vary, but here's another one from that early first batch. This was the wizard that Dad claimed for all the Diamond Dash runs. And then the fourth one should be my cleric, the one that I use. Yeah, this was my profile picture when I first came to Discord.
Okay.
Uh, she was she was the one that I decided I started writing a little. I was going to do some little short animated storylines of okay, follow a D&D group effectively through a fake story, as if I had a game that I was doing this way, and it didn't wind up coming to fruition because I wound up making my crafting channel first, and you can't edit more than one video at a
No.
time, and it all just takes time, and so doing stop motion animation was going to take so much more, and so I decided not to go that direction. But she sort of still is one of the main characters in all my plot lines. She and Surfer Scale were sort of the original duo that teamed up and went adventuring.
Okay, let's see. Surfer scale would be this guy, yeah? One of these guys?
He's the middle guy of the guards here. Yeah, he's
Okay.
the one with the red scarf. Because I this was after I had got a Whiz Kids pack of paints that was
Mm-hmm.
skin tones, and so it had three skin tone colors. So I figured, okay, anytime that I have a pack of three minis, I'm gonna paint one of each. That way I have a nice variety. And anytime I have any that aren't in a grouping, I just rotate through. Okay, we picked this color today. Okay, we did that color last time. We'll do this color today. And that way I get variety, and nobody has any rhyme or reason as to why anybody is any color. And that way I have a nice blend, and I don't have a well. Look at that! All of my wizards are wearing blue and are blonde. Um,
Are they related or something?
and exactly. Though I did do that on purpose at one point because that first the little cleric mini in yellow has a little green dragon on her shoulder, and I got another wizard with a little dragon on his shoulder, so I painted him in the exact same color scheme, and they're from the same order. Something about having with little dragons on your shoulder.
Okay.
Here was my first big bad evil guy mini. This was him and his cultist. I figured I no idea what his name is still, but I needed a bad guy mini, and so I got some. The cultists have come in very handy. They've been used all over the place. And in fact, the cultist with the rule book is going to be featured in my next video. He is uh the MC for the jousting event kind of a thing.
The Herald kind of
Herald.
thing.
He's the
Yeah, okay.
herald for the event. So it's like, oh yeah, he's holding a rule book. He's reading out to the crowd. That's great.
Okay,
And my
so
first boat, my little dinghy, this is entirely dollar store foam.
that's foam.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, that's really those sides are really thin. I mean, how? Yeah.
Yeah, it's entirely dollar store foam. That's why I seal everything because after a layer of Mod Podge on either side, and then the paint, and then the varnish, I mean, if if you got rough with it, you could break it, but
Yeah, but I mean that looks like really
the
delicate
bottom
as
is
a.
cardboard.
Yeah,
It looks delicate, but
I get about sealing it. Yeah, that it makes a hell of a difference.
yeah, yeah. I seal everything. I live in Washington, and it's so humid here. Most of the time, we are above 80% humidity. We are often at 100% humidity, which I thought meant you were underwater. It does not even mean raining. You can be at 100% humidity and not have rain. So I seal everything because my first dungeon tiles, I painted them and then I stacked them. And in the humidity, they were completely dry. I'd let them dry for days, and the humidity sealed them back together. So I then
Is
started
that when you
sealing everything in varnish, and I don't have that problem.
is that when you had sealed them with PVA and not varnished on top?
Yeah, I hadn't even sealed with PVA at that point, but white glue reactivates in humidity, so I didn't even try that because I
Yeah.
figured it was a losing battle. I could probably get away with another coat of Mod Podge, but I just use matte varnish. I use this stuff for artist paintings to lock in your oil paint so that they don't degrade.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely going to work.
Yeah. But it's archival quality matte finish UV resistant. It's like that. If they're making it for fancy oil paintings, it should hold up as long as it's not humid when you spray it, because then it does still frost. So here was one of my battle maps. This was in my days of at the end of every episode, I want to showcase what I've made as a here's how I would use this on the table. So that if it's a thing of that's a great piece, but how on earth would you ever use that? But here's how I would use that. So this was the Canvas Sacks episode, I believe.
Okay.
Can-
Okay,
No, this
I like how the
I want to say
adventurers
this
have
was Canvas.
the tavern keeper and the lady with the beer and the food in the back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So my thought was at this point, I still wasn't scripting it before I made the board. I was building a board and then deciding, okay, what's happening here? Let me write the script. So I figured we'll take all of the people from the castle down into the basement and we'll save them and protect them. We'll put the guards around to keep them safe. And then we'll have our adventuring party ready to fight skeletons coming down the stairs. Look at all the skeletons. Uh, so yeah, now I do it the reverse. I write my script and then I build something that fits the script and then I film specifically for those 5 lines so that I don't have 12 dozen different shots for at the end.
And okay, I think this was also one of your earlier videos about the spiral staircase, yeah?
Yes, yeah. So what I did, kind of like with the altar, any specific map features of that one map I was building, I broke out and did. This is complicated enough to do its own video. And yeah, the spiral staircase I was very proud of because I discovered exactly the right distance and depth you could do it so that he doesn't fall off the stairs.
Without actually 'cause stairs are always a bit of a problem because you can make them realistic or you can make them playable, but getting a balance between them is really tricky.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of aiming for here of the okay, I don't want to have individual steps, but I don't want this to just be a 1 inch square and then a
Yeah.
1 inch square. So doing it at the half inch and having each one be a quarter of an inch thick. Was a quarter inch or eighth of an inch? I have the right measurements in the video so that yeah, by the time you get to the top, it's all the right distance. I was very pleased that that worked.
Okay, so let's see. I think these are some.
But making a map made it so much easier. I didn't have to decide what is this going to be in this corner. What do I need to do here or there? It was oh well, I already know exactly what I need to do. I have it drawn out. I just have to try and match that. Made life so much easier. Oh, I have my 2 different methods of books here
All
because
right.
I haven't actually used the books in anything. I've been making books because I like books. And there were for them. I'll get to them eventually. But the first method I was using, I want to say this was another Wylock trick of you cut a strip of the double half and clip it. So
Mm-hmm.
this is just bent over cardboard and all of the pages are the corrugation sticking out.
Okay.
And so you just go along with scissors and trim so that it doesn't have a bulge. And then you have little books.
Yeah. Okay.
And it makes a great open book. My other method is good for closed books. I'm trying to remember who I got that from. A couple people suggested this other method to me. This is popsicle sticks that I then put a strip of cardstock around. So I didn't have to paint anything
Ooh.
except the popsicle sticks here. I painted the popsicle sticks to look like pages, cut them
Okay.
to be the right heights, and then cut paper to be slightly bigger, and then just wrap them around with white glue.
I got you. All right.
So this is a bunch of scrapbooking paper from when I was the assistant manager of a scrapbook store with all sorts of different textures and variations in color, things that I have kept stacked up and not used for a long time, finding excuses to use them.
You'll find uses for them
Having
eventually.
a paper cutter made this all much easier.
Okay, and these are little spools of yarn, I think.
Bottles.
What
So
was?
they're
Ah,
colored to
okay.
be, they could easily be spools of yarn. I was making bottles for my tavern. It's a Q-tip. So I take the Q-tip and I pull all of the
Ah,
cotton down to one end and then dip it in white glue, cut it off and stand it up. You have to press kind of hard to stand it up to give it that flat bottom. And then, yeah, little bottle. I'm going to do it with some of the plastic ones so I can make it into the candle sticking out of the bottle with the wax dripping down. Because
ooh, okay.
I use the hollow styrene tubes as candles, and some Q-tips come with hollow styrene tubes.
Yep.
So I have plans. I have plans.
The time I made bottles, I did them out of sprue frames. The round sprue frames, not the cross-section ones. Your method is probably a lot safer because mine involves heating them up and probably inhaling a bit too much plastic.
Yeah, yeah, melting plastic's always fun that way.
So let's see.
I see, here's part of what the books were for. This was, I originally, so this started with the strawberry fields. I was going to make a little market stand to
Oh,
sell
okay, that's what it
strawberries.
stands. Yeah, okay.
And then I got overboard and I started making other market stands. And then I figured, well, I should have a bookseller at the market since I've been making books. So I started making bookshelves. And then I realized, as you can see down at the bottom, I could put the bottles into wine racks. So if you cut granny grading out a specific way or the cross stitch mesh, sorry, my grandma called it granny grading. So I've never considered that to be a negative term. Um, and so it makes wine bottle holders, cut out just the center of each one. And that little section of 4 fits the Q-tip bottle perfectly. So I'm going to glue together some wine racks and have that as well. I've got little cutting boards cut out so that I can have the cheese shop. I've got the ones there with the bars going across. Those are the way that used books get sold a lot when they get put in. They're just the two bars and you angle the book against it.
Okay, yeah.
So I have some for that. I also had some for selling cloth because there's the piles of vibrantly colored things. That's the the
Car
fleece was something that I got. That's what I made my lava boards out of to get a nice intense tie-dye color. And so I cut up a bunch and rolled it up into rugs and left it into squares for fur because fleece has a great fur texture to it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm going to be painting all those to look like skins. The standing ones are the ones that I've been painting in the crafting meetups.
Okay, yeah.
So those 5 up at the top. And then the bolts of cloth are, I did brown paper bags to be leather piles. I took extra fabric that I have from my quilting days and just rolled it up and soaked it in glue. So that's 2 different kinds of fabric, and then paper towels are the rolls there. That way I could have the furrier and the leather worker and the textiles shop
And then you've got
and then
ropes and
these
stuff.
straws. This is an experiment. Yeah, yeah, to all the different kinds of string and twine and yarn that I have, and soaked it in glue and wrapped it around my finger, and then pulled it off and set it on
Okay, and
the board.
what are these tubes or rods over
So
here?
that's an experiment. That's
Okay,
something I'm working on right now. Those are, I've taken a straw and then wrapped it with raffia. And some of the raffia I unwrapped first so that I had a nice wide pattern, and some of it I left wrapped up so that you get kind of that texture.
okay.
And my plan is I'm going to cut them into sections and they're going to be baskets.
Ooh, okay.
So I've got the cornucopia there that I cut off of the end. And my plan is that if
Ah,
as long
okay.
as I fill them with stuff, I can make a whole bunch of baskets, just have stuff in them, and you won't see the cut end, and the other cut end will be glued to the table. So I've got different colors and variations. I dry brushed with the same color on all of it, so they all wind up looking almost exactly the same. But I figure depending on where I cut them, it'll either give colored lines across the pottery for decoration that I can then go in and pick some designs out on, or it'll just be solid colored, or it's an experiment. And then the pony beads and other beads that you see on the wires down there are going to be candles, to
Okay.
be bigger candles than the little
Like
tapers that I was
the
doing.
chunky
I also have the
candles. Yeah, okay.
exactly. And I have a nice little candle stand as well. That's what the top right hand corner of all of
Oh,
the little booths are. That's a candle stand. Uh, and it has a hanging bit because I also did some dipped candles in order to
let's see. Is this the one?
to I know that's up in the awnings that I was making. Uh, so it's the white container that's got all of the little small doodads right down next to the. My words are real good today. It's
This
down from here in the center.
down.
So I've got some half barrels and the cutting boards and the bottles
Ah,
and
okay, okay, okay.
the various things. So the top left corner there, it's that kind of a stair step thing.
Uh-huh.
It's a little stair step for candles to be displayed on.
Okay.
And then I've got the candles that I dipped that are just the regular styrene candles, but I left the wire long and then dipped them into white glue a couple times, the way you do with wax, and then
Hmm.
let them dry. So they have a very dipped paper look. So I'm going to hang them along the top over it. I've got all of the various produce bins. So I've got various different herbs and spices that I'm going to use to make some of the stuff, like black peppercorns to be cabbages. I'm going to try caraway seeds, I think, as corn potentially,
All right.
uh, or possibly brown rice for corn, depending. Uh, so yeah, I have lots of plans.
Yeah, you're definitely not short of ideas.
No, no, but I'm running short of space because I haven't finished any of that, so it's still
Yeah.
taking up space. I need to build it a shelf.
Okay. Yeah. I forgot about this. I was wanted to ask you about this. What are we?
Yeah, so that is because of my hand issues.
Mhm.
I have trouble using my finger to press on the knife blade, and that's generally how you use an X-Acto. So I've added some pencil holders to it so that I have a better grip, and it also I have two of them. So the second one on the back there is because most of my X-Acto use is against this part of my hand. That's how I get the pressure to push.
Okay.
And so when I use an X-Acto regularly, that part really starts to hurt. And so having these extra paddings on, I'm able to get better control and apply more pressure so I can cut for longer before it's a problem.
I see. It's a neat solution for that.
Yeah, I'm good at MacGyvering things as I go. At the upholstery shop, I had all of our windows were made of polycarbonate. I wish I still had all my scraps from that. I threw away so much polycarbonate there because we were using different thicknesses for the windows. And
Hmm.
I took a rectangle of it and I used it for patterning. So all of the patterns we would have our Sharpie line from the boat, and then we'd come back and I'd lay a tape line along the best part of the Sharpie line to get a nice, long, smooth flow. And then I'd come back and I'd make my the key marks that we
Hmm.
made completely square off of it because everything was based off of those. And then I would decide, okay, the view line needs to be here, the cut line needs to be here, because there'd be 4 or 5 different things that we had on each pattern. And so I would take my polycarbonate, I'd line up to the farthest one away, and then I would lay a tape line on my polycarbonate to match the tape line on the table, and I'd label it. And I'd come down to my next line, and I'd draw the line, and then I'd lay tape on my ruler of a different color, and I'd label it. So I'd have 5 strips of tape on my rectangle, and then I would
Hmm.
just go along, line up the tape and mark it, line up the tape and mark it, line up the tape and mark it, and then go down with the next color, line up the tape and mark it, line up the tape and mark it, line up the tape and mark it. Now I didn't have to try and measure each individual mark because we went. That took forever.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing when I first got there. But their patterns were also much simpler when I first got there, so that helped.
I mean, it's efficient. I mean, like again, if you can manage to make something into a, anytime you can shave a few seconds of a repetitive process, then it's that's always sort of time saved.
Okay, and I think you can do to ensure accuracy too. The other thing I made was we did things with magnets. And
Oh, all
so
right.
I made magnet keys that I took a magnet and I sandwiched it between polycarbonate and I cut a hole in the center of the polycarbonate, put the magnet in it, sandwiched it. And in the sandwich, I put a label. One side said in and one side said out. So that you knew if you were on the inside of the boat, this should be facing you. If the magnet
Ah,
sticks
okay.
to it, you're good. If you're on the outside of the boat and it sticks, you're good. If you're on the outside and you do that and it repels, you have put your magnet in backwards. And there was no way to mess up the tool and reverse it because everything was sealed inside the polycarbonate. I had 2 of those so that we had 2 keys that matched.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like if you need to stop and think if you're doing it right, as opposed to having something that will tell you straight away, then again, that's a lot of time you're saving. So yeah, that's really neat. So
In your figuring it out phase, figure out ways to make it work. Don't try and make sure later that you're matching what you figured out before.
yeah, exactly.
And then I was making furniture. So after DM Scotty did the Jenga blocks from Dollar Tree furniture, I went to Dollar Tree, and only Jenga blocks I can get are the little tiny ones. So I started making furniture out of it. And so I figured, well, beds for most any tavern setting or inn or anything would be a good thing to have.
Hmm.
So I made up a bunch of the blocks, and then I used
I think those are matchsticks
it
over there.
was they are the crafting matchsticks. They don't actually have the match heads
Ah,
on
okay,
them. You
okay.
can just buy the sticks themselves. And then I use paper towel to fold up the little pillows in the blankets, the same way that I do my bed rolls. And then again, I went back to my quilting scraps and started using real fabric. So the folded up triangle at the end of the bed is real fabric, so that it gives a different texture when I paint it. And so I did a bunch of different varieties of blankets on the beds, and they're all the same color wood, but the
The blankets
that
and
way people can,
the stuff are
when they get
different.
into the room, immediately go, "Oh, I want the blue bed. I
Yeah.
want that one." Have a Goldilocks situation. Yeah, the beds are just a thing to have a scatter, I think. I've yet to actually use them ever on the table, but
Okay, and
there's a
that's
dice tray that I made.
oh
That
yeah.
was fun.
Let's see.
Not a lot to look at really with that one. That's entirely chipboard and felt, and then the outside is that it's like soft craft foam. It's,
Soft craft like EVA or something like
I can never remember what this stuff's called. It's the stuff that they use for kids crafting. Uh,
that.
I can't think of what it's called. And so I cut that to make the corners for that soft puffy bit. Everything else is just cardstock, felt, glue, and I got a cheap mouse pad to put in the bottom. So when I roll metal dice in this tray, you don't really hear it because it's got that really thick
Yeah,
gel
that
pad.
would do that. Yeah.
And I made my little holding tray off to the side, but I've discovered that no one else can get into the little holding tray because I have tiny fingers.
Yeah, I mean it's a
So I
good
made it exactly the width of the biggest die because that was all I needed.
yeah, it's a good way to make sure that no one else uses your dice.
There's that, I suppose. I hadn't considered that element. So yeah, I
Okay.
just went through, and for the I painted the whole thing black, and then I dry brushed it with silver. And then for the rivets, I went through and I did a really light colored dot, and then I went back and I did the darker dot over the top, and then in the center I came back with silver, so I had a little highlight, low light,
So
and
that
then dot.
so
So I kind of faked the rivet.
each dot we're seeing there is three passes of painting then.
It's three little dots. Yeah.
Ah, okay, I see it now.
Hmm. You can't really see the dark behind it, but it's
I think it's visible
off.
here, for example, in this one, just at the bottom of it.
Yeah, 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 there it is. And so it really helps sell the look. As soon as you look at it, you can tell they're painted, but it's just a quick glance. It's a metal dice tray. I also watched a lot of home decorating videos with some of the stuff that I did growing up. I did a lot of babysitting and then nannying. And one of the kids was obsessed with Christopher Lowell. So every time the Christopher Lowell show came on, we watched it. And he was big on faux marble finish, faux wood finish, faux stone finish. We're going to take this piece of wood and make it look like something fancy. And so, yeah, I embraced that wholeheartedly. And it's great for doing D&D techniques, like the fake marbling techniques. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, anybody wants to do a fake texture, look up home decorating channel.
Okay, so let's see more tiles.
Yeah, yeah. So this was my second set of dungeon tiles. My first set was kind of iffy because I made it on dollar store foam and I cut it all by hand. This was
You're breaking up a little.
the prox on. So I went and I got myself some good foam. What part did you miss? Where am I at?
Uh, I
Anything
I
now?
I think you are saying that you cut this on the Proxonia.
Yeah, yeah. Dad had just got the new prox on, so I went out and I got some good foam at the hardware store and I cut this. And so I have two sets of stairs going up. I have two sets of stairs going down, and then I have the 9 dungeon tiles. So I have some of the extra tiles stacked behind the stairs because the stairs are down on the floor.
Okay, so that pool thing in the middle is actually the stairs, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, stairs going down.
All right.
And technically it has 3 steps so that you still have the 3 squares to cover.
Three
So so
steps.
that if you're working on a grid, it's all mathematically happy.
Ah, okay, I see it now. It's because it's got that offset.
They're
Okay,
not quite an inch because you have to step down into it.
of course, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because there's the brick around the edge, but
Okay.
it's still only a ½ inch thick. So I went in and I cut out the center and then I planed off a little bit from each bit stepping forward and then just put it all to a piece of paper underneath so that it had a something that won't fall through easily. This was testing the method of I wanted to have something besides the fold out boards because they're all shiny. And so
Uh-huh.
this was my before I started making my felt boards. This was my test idea of I have a piece of felt, would this work? Ironically, I can't get this color of felt in the big sheet. So my grass boards I haven't made yet because they're going to be different than this. but this was my proof of concept of does the terrain look good on felt? And it looks great on felt. So I
Yeah,
started
it
getting
does.
artist hardboards that you get to do like painting on, I guess.
Mhm.
And so I then just take that, put white glue on it, put my piece of felt over it, and then flip it over, run my knife along the edges to cut everything square, put glue on that side, put a piece of felt on it, flip it over, cut everything square. Having glue on both sides means the pull is equal, so it stays flat.
Mhm.
And then it's a reversible board. So one side has one side has the other. And then I go along with my ruler because I have one of my other favorite tools, my quilting ruler, because quilting
Okay,
rulers are
hang
clear.
on a sec. Quilting ruler. Can you bring up the quilting ruler?
I'm holding it up. It's clear. This is the quilting ruler. I also have little quilting rulers. If you go to the quilting section of your store, they sell acrylic rulers, and these are the most marvelous things for crafting because you can see through it and you can immediately make things square because you can just hold something up to it and know, okay, I'm out here and I'm there, and if it lines up with both, I'm good. I love my quilting
Yeah,
ruler.
that's something new. I didn't know it was called a quilting ruler, but I was always looking for a transparent engineering ruler, but that would work perfectly.
Yeah, it's for rotary cutting. It's for cutting with the rotary blades so that you can,
Uh-huh.
which rotary cutters are also great, but not something I've tried with crafting.
I tried them. I tried rotary cutters for some fabric stuff. Shit, they're sharp.
Mm,
I mean, I was surprised at how sharp they're.
very, very sharp. In fact, all of the nicks in my quilting ruler are not from Exactos. They're from places where the yeah.
On the plus side, with rotary cutters, I found it's very difficult to accidentally cut yourself, unless you're being very
Yeah,
stupid.
you have to be dumb. Yeah, they really have built in some good safety to that. It's also where you find thimbles for people who poke themselves a lot. Thimbles are a real good thing.
Okay, and I think last one for now is the dwarven pillars. Yeah.
Ah, yes. Yeah. So I made my first set of pillars and they were a little funky looking. So this was my dad had the procs on. I was now making real foam things. I redone the dungeon tiles, then I redid the pillars. And I decided, oh, these are epic. I need some sort of dramatic photo of them. So I set that up. And it's really simple. It's just two layers of foam, one slightly smaller than the other for the base. And then on the square pillar, just stair stepping the design down a couple times. The same thing I did with my Fountain of Buck. I was kind of hoping to be able to fit her into maybe a dwarven architectural scheme at some point. I also use these pillars in the background of the video because they fit.
Yeah, and I think Lawrence Davis on Dirty Basement Terrain just used this, did a very similar
Mm.
video to this recently. I think he used slightly more elaborate bases and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dwarven pillars. As soon as you start layering the designs in different sizes, you start getting that look. No matter what shapes you go for, really,
yep,
layering the
totally, it
designs, you
will get
start
there.
getting that. Which on that, I mean, I don't know why I don't have more dwarven terrain. It's so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, the dwarven aesthetic that you get in Lord of the Rings, World of Warcraft, Warhammer, it's like it lends itself really well to phone building.
It does. It really does.
I mean, even even their statues, because sometimes you see the statues on the elven side of things are all curves and smooth lines or whatever. Uh, Dwarven statues, okay, you've got a nose which is basically a square chunk of rock.
Oh yeah, yeah. Very geometric, the dwarf.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well, and I found that really a lot of the terrain that I would make, because one of my first projects was the dungeon stackers, there's a lot of things that I just don't need. Like I often think, oh, I should make an altar. Well, I don't really need an altar. I can just put two dungeon stackers together. So unless I have a specific thing that I need an altar for. So I actually started thinking about doing like swappable altar cloths of some sort of like U shape that could just put over the altar and have various things on that. So I can put my dungeon stackers, put my cover on it. But at that point, I might as well just fill in underneath. So I don't know. There's thoughts, there's plans. I'm not sure. I want an altar, but I've never figured out a reason good enough to make one specific. So when I do, I'll come up with a solution. Necessity being the mother of invention and all that.
yeah, I'm just imagining okay, so you got the standard altar, you got the overlay with the skulls and stuff. Then someone comes in. Sorry, it was the church. Is this the Church of Stevo? No, that's on Thursdays when we
Oh, right,
swap the
right,
clothes.
right, yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
For
That
Vegas Chapel. Oh, you wanted the Elvis wedding. Hold on, different tape.
okay. Dungeon Matron saying that reminds me of something I was going to share on the meetup. The little embossed handles on needle threaders have profiles you can use on tombs or shields. What's a needle threader?
So it's this device that you put your needle into and your thread into so that when you then pull it, it threads the needle eye so that you don't have to thread the needle yourself.
Oh, okay, all right. It's that little
It's a
diamond
very
shape.
cool tool.
It's that diamond shaped wire thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
usually. Yeah. There's a couple different ways they do them, but that's the most common, I think.
all right.
It's been a while since I've used one.
Yeah, that does sound like
The sewing machines all had one built in that was a little hook thing that you pushed it in and it stuck through with a hook, but then you just let go and it sucked it right through. I love industrial sewing machines. They were built with so many cool features.
Okay. Speaking of meetups, if you're on Discord and you want to join in any meetups, Dungeon Matron's hosting. I believe it's every Wednesday and every other Saturday. Yeah?
Mhm.
So yeah, just drop the link in the chat for anyone who's not in there yet. Okay.
Definitely a good time. We have fun chats, mostly crafting. Occasionally we wander, but who doesn't?
Okay. So since we're talking about Discord, would you like to go and have a look at the community showcase? Because that thing has been brewing
Absolutely.
for, it's been cooking for a month now. So I think
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
got
it's been
a,
building up.
yeah. So first up is Stefano from Kimmerware Gaming. Some
Oh,
forestering. Ooh.
hold on a second. Let me make my screen bigger here. When Zoom restarted, it dropped me from full screen. There. Nice. Oh, I love the skulls. I love his use of skulls.
Also like the way he's got the ropes going and the I think that might
Yes,
looks like
Stefano
some kind
uses
of
such
roots or something like that. Yeah.
his use of textures is so wonderful. I know he uses a lot of the various green stuff lines and stuff. He
Hmm.
just yeah, his use of texture is great. Yeah, those roots. It just I need to start putting natural stuff into my builds. I'm seeing these guys do these stuff with roots, and it just it looks so cool.
Okay, and
I miss living in Central Oregon. We had sagebrush there. The dried out sagebrush would be perfect for this kind of thing.
and one thing I really like is that, for example, if you look at Martin's work, Palpatalia, he also works a lot with roots and stuff like that, but their styles are completely distinct.
Yeah, you can tell they're using similar materials, but there's no similarity between the projects in that aspect. They're going, yeah, totally there.
Mm.
There's a very almost dark crystal vibe to these, the sort of the almost the scheme of the Skeksis, but with the shape of the wise ones. I can never remember
Oh yeah,
what they're
okay,
called.
I see where you're going there.
Without being the combined thing that they become.
Okay, oh, this is from
Oh yes,
Dirty Basement
the
Terrain. I
dark pool.
think this was one of his first videos, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. The order of the videos, we talked about them in chat a couple times, so come join the chat if you want behind the scenes of all of our shows. But it makes it that I can't quite remember what the actual release order was.
Okay, so loosely collected
I
said
know what's coming
Discord link didn't work for me. Okay, let me try to get a 1 second because it looks like the Discord link was broken. No problem.
though.
Let me grab a new one real quick.
Oh, while you're doing that, let me check and see if there's any. Oh no, I know. Haha. Things I also have sitting here in front of me. So tools I like to have: back to paper, toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls. They work really well for drying things. So if you have something that is set up and you want to have a drying rack, kitchen drying racks are also a really good thing for like cookie racks. Wonderful for putting projects on when you're done. But if you don't have a cookie rack, cut up a toilet paper roll or ball up your aluminum foil until it makes some sort of a stand to support
Sorry,
them.
could you repeat that because I didn't catch it?
Yeah, yeah. So my favorite thing for drying stuff,
Uh-huh.
cookie rack.
Okay.
Second favorite, cut up toilet paper rolls. Third favorite, bunched up aluminum foil because you can make it take a shape.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Anything to get your project held up and in place. And if you're baking things with Sculpey, you can make an aluminum foil shape all the way around things to hold it up so that it doesn't droop when it softens in the oven and lose its shape.
Okay. So,
If you don't make the pieces separate and glue them together after.
okay, so I pasted a link in the chat. So, if let me guys know if that works. So, okay, back to Discord, and we're looking at Lawrence's tentacles.
The tentacles have arrived. Our favorite thing, tentacles. Who doesn't like them, really?
I have no idea. Do you think there's
I
anyone
love the
who?
color on that that green black
Mhm.
vibe is very nice.
But yeah, and I like the splashes and the wet look too. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that the green of the tentacles is not the same base green color as the moss. So it's not that, oh, these tentacles are part of maybe some sort of growth. It's very clear. No, these aren't vines. These are tentacles.
Okay. So yeah, if anyone doesn't follow him yet, Dirty Basement Terrain is definitely one to watch.
Yeah, all the splashing around there is so cool.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is from Earthman
Ah,
Brick.
yes, the blacksmith set. Boy, we have been piling these up for a while. We're
Oh yeah, I
looking
mean
back in time
it's
with them.
been it's over a month because the last one we did was I want to say beginning of December.
Yeah, yeah. So we're definitely it's time. I have to say one of my favorite things with this is he did a thing that I've been waiting to do and haven't done yet, and I'm glad to see it works beautifully. The gold bricks that he's got next to the furnace there are bits of sprue cut at the right angles and then just painted gold.
Yeah.
And yeah, it works beautifully.
Okay. And one thing that doesn't really show from this is that the forge and the roof here are all MDF terrain, MDF kits, but the way he painted them up really hides it. So that's really good
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the painting on those bricks with the highlights is great.
Okay, and he's saying that the base was an old polystyrene pizza base.
Yeah, yeah, and he's got a compass rose built into it, which I think is a great
I,
idea.
I
There's a really subtle,
I didn't
you can
spot
see the
I didn't actually spot that. I mean, because I did look for it when people mentioned it, but I couldn't spot it.
so right next to the wood pile, you can see part of one of the letters. I want to say it's west. At the moment, I'm having trouble seeing it.
This
There was
was
another photo I want to say that showed it better.
all right. Okay, maybe I'll look it up
But
later then.
because I remember very clearly seeing, I want to say I saw south and west in the
Okay,
photo.
I'll have another look at the other photos then. Right, more from Earthman Brick, 10 millimeter scale buildings.
Oh yeah, going into the tiny, tiny thing.
Oh yeah, I think he also showed this for the Let There Be Light challenge where he was showing a light inside them.
That's
So,
right. Yeah, you put these on that bar light. Yeah, that
yeah,
these look very cool. Yeah,
and
that rusty red with the
mhm.
green foliage that really sets off nicely.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about a lot of the work Steve does on his channel. It's like he takes MDF kits and then he pimps them up.
Mm.
Because again, if you just have MDF buildings, I think here the ones in the back are the
Yeah, it
way
gets
they
a
come
bit
out of
plain
the
if you
box.
just
It's
do them straight.
they're a bit too clean and stuff like that, but they can really be punched up.
Hmm. Well, like the air conditioning vents on the top, he
Hmm.
said he had a bunch of like zip ties and stuff to help.
Yeah, Steve does
I've
like
got
his
my
zip
first
ties.
MDF kit I'm going to be making soon. I'm definitely going to be taking inspiration from the ideas of, yes, add things.
Okay, so
Ah, we're back to Lawrence and
Lawrence again, yeah.
rocks. There's going to be a series of rocks if you
Oh
put
yeah.
them all
So
in
we've
there.
got the desert rocks, we've got the icing rocks, because we're not allowed to
To
say the
me,
other word
every
on
time I
YouTube.
see these, it looks so much like a cinnamon roll from the side to me with the snow, just because I just there's a part of my brain that goes there. So it's like, oh yeah, boy, this place it's gonna smell real good when the adventurers wind up here. I can tell.
Okay, and grassy rock.
Yeah. Love a good mossy coating on just about anything.
Mhm.
I have a tendency to overdo moss. This is a nice amount. He didn't go overboard.
Ooh, okay, so Tina Martins, this is her
Oh
clock
yes,
tower.
the brick by brick on the clock tower. I
Uh,
haven't done any individual bricklaying. It looks very zen.
don't listen. Trust me, don't.
I was talking with her about it so much she was doing this, and she said that she agreed with me that it's sort of like how I do my uh, wood grain stuff. Of yeah, it takes hours, but you just sort of get into the meditative, smooth, relaxed flow, and it just lets your brain rest a bit.
I'll be honest. I don't think I would have finished
It's
the
so cool.
stuff I was bricking if it wasn't for the hangouts. Because I needed something to distract me. Because if I focused on what I was doing, I would just have given up.
Yeah, yeah, no, you have to have something else happening at the same time. Well, and I love with this project she's doing that she's mixing the hand carved bricks with the laid bricks back and forth between the buildings. So
Oh yeah,
it's marvelous,
and
especially with the history of Hogwarts being what it
Mhm.
is, of how things have been put together in different times. So having those subtle variations, it's this project has been so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think we have some more photos of from later on. So yeah, it's an epic project. There's no other way to describe it. Okay.
Oh yes, back to Stefano with his cauldron of gooiness and more skulls.
Nom 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 nom.
Oh yeah. Oh, it even looks like he's got some brain left in one of those.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nice.
some good water effects in there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, nice and gooey. And some bubbles.
Okay, and yeah, the dirt again. You've got the dirtying up on the cauldron. You've got the dirtying up on the guy over here. Good stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he uses such a great color palette. A lot of those
Mhm.
autumn, warm, lovely.
Let's see. Oh, more rocks.
Hey, Rocka! Hey, moss and oh, that's right. These are the creepy, crawly swamp rock. Nice little centipede looking like crack
Yep.
or running across there. Yeah. Too many legs.
Okay, so this one's from Phil.
Yes, this is when he was working on the foam for the splashing, and he
Yeah,
it was cotton balls and gloss Mod Podge, I think, if I'm
that
remembering
worked great.
right.
It's like it looks like seafoam.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
And if I remember correctly, this was a whale toy that had cut in half. If I remember correctly.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Phil
the
often steals from his child's collection of toys, from what we've seen. Yeah, it's not as much fun to tease him if he's not here to respond. He might be responding in the comments.
no, no, I don't think so. No.
That looks so cool. That just it turned out so well, and having it all the way down the fins so that it continues the continuity of where the water is.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's definitely something I'll need to keep in mind. So cotton and what would you? Nice.
yeah, yeah. I'd seen cotton balls pulled apart and used for Spanish moss, but it's yeah, basically the same technique. Just
What's Spanish moss?
it's like in swamps when you see all that green stuff draping down off the trees.
Ah,
That's the
okay, all right,
Spanish moss.
all right. Okay, good to know. Okay, so
They called it that in California. It might be called something else elsewhere.
I have no idea. As far as I know, it's called green stuff hanging off trees. So I'm not very good at botany.
That works.
Okay, more of Tina's
Ah,
Hogwarts.
yes, or go back to Hogwarts.
Damn, seriously, this build is so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Getting to see this in place is gonna be so epic when it's done.
Okay, Tina, if you're listening, I think we'll just have to do a stream where you give us a tour of it at some point when you're done.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes. And if anybody has one of those like probe cameras that they could send to her for that so that she could walk us through bits of it. Oh.
Okay, so this is also from
Oh,
Phil.
good. Thank you
Also
for
from
all you
Phil.
did.
And yeah, I think these are more of his kids' toys.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, great color. I like the purple flies against the green dragonflies. That's nice.
Yeah. The thing is that even cheap toys look really good if they get a good paint over.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take much.
Okay. Oh, okay. So cross both these bugs out for a comparison. These are from the ones we did for the pistachio challenge.
Oh, the pistachios. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Very effective bug out of pistachio shells, gotta say. Doesn't take much.
Aha. Who?
Ah, yes. The tactical rat. Uh, yeah, I had a lot of fun with him. So yeah, I took some final faction bits and broke apart. I kind of split the helmet open so that I could fit it over his ears, and then took the parts that broke off and placed them back in around the sides to kind of make add-ons. And then I took a piece of string and ran it from the back of the helmet up to the top, and then I kind of bored a hole out of him with a screw. I literally just screwed into him and then yanked the screw out, and then stuck the peg of the final faction gun into the top, pressing the string down into the hole with it, and ta-da. Then to hold him onto the base like that, because the rats have this tail that's plastic and goes everywhere, I took thread and I tied it around one of the two of the different places in the tail, and then tucked
Okay.
it underneath the rat before gluing him to the base,
All right.
so that basically there's two spots that the string is holding under the base so that the tail doesn't move out and fly off.
Okay. Okay. Dirty basement
Ah,
terrain
then we've
again.
got column. Yeah.
Columns. Brick columns. I like these too. I mean, for variation from the solid ones.
And I think he was doing this all with dollar store foam to make it a cheap, easy project if it was just a bunch of squares stacked up. I think.
Hmm.
Let's go back and look.
So let's see. Okay, so Tina Martin is saying she has a GoPro. Good, very good. Evolution of
Oh,
gaming.
excellent.
Tina's playing with her chalk, 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 chalk. I have no idea what that is. Uh, okay, campaign terrain, scattered terrains, ROUVs, rodents of unusual violence.
That worked. That worked. Now with lasers. It wasn't a shark. It was the best I could do.
Okay, oh, more pillars.
Oh, yes, the other columns. Yeah.
Yeah, I think these are some of the ones I saw him do in the video.
hmm hmm Yeah, the idea of stack things that are just simple shapes and you get columns out of it is a great one.
Okay, that's okay. So this is full moon crafting, doing some painting. I like that he's using a very simple palette here, but it looks very effective.
I really enjoy with his minis that he does sort of the same thing I do. He tries to keep a very similar color palette along all of them. There's definitely, you can tell they all live in the same universe.
Hmm.
Very Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, okay. So some desert buildings from Lil C.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. I remember when he was doing these. Yeah. Yeah, that's very effective. I love that color combo.
I like that they give a lot of playability because you've got. I don't think you can see it here because, but you can just make out the a gap in the wall.
Oh, the door, yeah.
Yeah, so that lets you go over and there, up and down. So even if it's a very simple T shape, it gives you a lot of playability.
Oh yeah.
Okay, back to Earthman Brick with his
Oh, the Noblog. Yes.
Noblog. Okay,
This is
yeah.
an ambush predator.
So he's got this video on his channel, and I think you helped him with a voiceover for this, yeah?
Indeed, I read all about the Noblog, and it's five to hit, and it's six strikes, and it's rocky, hard shell that it reaches out and grabs you, and then bashes you up against its shell. Great, as long as you don't get grappled, you can escape from it real easy. Yeah, yeah, this is so fun. All of the little bumpy skin compared to that smooth back. The really it's contrasting textures that I love. Contrasting textures, contrasting colors. When you pull off that contrast really well, it's so satisfying.
Hmm. And oh, okay. I really this is another one from Earthman Brick, and I really love this particular project. 10
Oh yeah,
millimeter
this was he
stretchable
was
terrain.
inspired by the kit that came out, and so he basically just made his own version of it.
Okay, so 10 millimeter shipping containers and little pallets.
The little pallets. Oh,
Ah, and the forklifter.
the tiny little forklift. I love it. It's so tiny.
I think that
It reminds me of the first time I went into a kitchen store after doing professional cooking, and I picked up like one of the little keychain whisks. I was like, oh my goodness, if the whisks in the kitchen are like this big. It's just it's so tiny. Sorry, I like it when big things get made really, really tiny.
so I think we've
But
got.
I'm not going to start working in 10 millimeter scale because that's just insane.
Yeah, I'm not going to scratch build anything in that scale either. Just a terrain at most, but something like this. This is way, way, way over my. I think you've got some
Yeah, the
cable
people going
ties
back to
there.
doll houses, it's like, oh, bigger. Yeah,
Cable ties, and I think he has
yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
piece of
cable ties.
lighter. I think.
Okay, okay. I think there's also the MDF, not MDF, the part of the kit is involved. The body of it is one of the
I guess, yeah.
corners of the
Okay.
sprue, I think.
On the other hand, cable ties are an easy guess with Steve because if it's his build, there are cable ties somewhere. He loves his cable ties.
I think that's what the lift part is.
Yeah, yeah, the front of it, yeah.
He gets so many varieties of cable ties. My cable ties are all one size. He has these little tiny ones and these really thick ones. I need to start borrowing from construction sites.
Okay, painted and grunged up. Yeah,
The
these
tarps
look
are
good.
such a great touch.
Yeah, it adds a lot of color without complicating anything.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that lifter is really good.
Tiny little barrels at that side. Ah.
Yeah, good job, Steve. This is good.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Okay, Lawrence again from Dirty
Back in the
Basement.
basement,
Yeah.
lava. Yeah.
Okay, again, he's got a video on this, and yeah, I think he did a
Those
couple
lovely
of
bubbles.
videos about reptiles like acid and tentacles, obviously, and lava.
Things
Ooh,
you don't want to fall in.
ooh.
There we go, getting closer. Not
Sorry.
that we all have, a love of this build in particular, but oh, I love this build in particular. My goodness. Just, it's so satisfying. It's just, oh, that's gorgeous. Seeing it all come into the rock work. It's just,
Yeah,
and the stairs, the little stairs that go down to the lake.
little stairs. Where are the little stairs?
I was on the last picture.
Oh,
There,
okay, I
off to
see
the
them.
left.
All right.
Helps that I've read the books a couple times. And I don't know if have I watched. I don't think I've seen the last three movies. Come to think of it, it's out of the one where they. It's a spoiler alert when they kill Sirius. I watched up to that movie and I didn't watch past that one.
I think I only watched the first movie. I'm not sure. Okay, I hear the dwarven pillars we were talking about earlier.
Yes, yes, the stacking of the shapes. Oh yeah, he went with the much fancier base shape than I did.
Yeah, it started on off.
I just stacked squares. I
Yeah,
went real easy.
the same
But
concept
as
with
soon
an
as
octagon.
you
Yeah.
complicate the shape, it makes it so cool.
Oh yeah.
And if you have a hot wire, that's all so much easier.
Yeah, okay. Prepare for the deluge.
Look, more photos from me. See, this was another TCU challenge. This was a Lost Kingdom build. So that's my Dollar Tree wrestling statue. He is, in fact, one of the ones I hold up in the 12 days of crafting. And the arch, this was one of the arches that I made when I made my stone golems, and I decided to moss it up because I took all of my original dungeon tiles that were all a little iffy and
Hmm.
mossed them up so that I have ruins as tiles instead.
Yeah,
And it works well.
your mistakes are no texture.
And as I mentioned earlier, I like moss. I tend to overdo it a little with moss.
What do you use for moss? Because it looks really grainy. I like that.
I'm using it's Woodland Scenics. I'm doing
All
this
right.
is a blend actually of three things that I put together. Uh, I'm using some of the just standard green yellow mix that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Then adding into that, I'm adding some of the coarse turf of
Mm-hmm.
the burnt grass coarse turf, so it has a little bit more texture to it and it's a little bit rougher. And then I'm also adding the back to the fine turf more of the yellow from the yellow grass. And so then I'm mixing all that up with white glue until it's a pretty good goopy mixture, and then just spreading it on. And that way I don't have to go back and reseal it because it's not loose block on top of glue. It's block completely already encased in glue. I still go back and varnish everything, but that's just because I varnished everything.
Okay, crossed is the arch made of EPS, cause the tiny circle texture really works there. Cause the
Say that
tiny
again?
circle, sorry, is the arch made of EPS, cause the tiny circles texture really works there. Tiny
That's
circle.
just regular pink foam. No, I just textured it with aluminum foil.
Alright.
Yeah, yeah. I heard so many jokes about what an undertaking this was that I did here, and yeah. So many good puns about this particular statue. I really enjoyed the. I put the fancy hat on him, and my dad immediately went, "Oh, he's a Schtroumpf, all right." Yeah, I kind of wanted to do it. Yeah, I didn't want that traditional pokey wizard hat. I figured, no, no. If I wrote up a nice little blurb about how he was an all-powerful being that was benevolent to those who worshipped him, but hinted at dark secrets for those who didn't. Yeah, good stuff. And I'm very happy with my the tile that he's on. The little one he's on is one of my original dungeon tiles, but the big one is one that I did. That's a one solid piece tile. It's not broken up,
Okay.
and it's got a carving in it that is
Yeah, okay,
from the
it's
Elder Futhark. And this one either says, if you can read this, you are playing Dungeons and Dragons, or it says, drink more Ovaltine. Those are the
drink
big
more
ones
wood.
that I did, and I mossed up one and Ovaltine. It's a joke from a movie, A Christmas Story. So one of them says drink more Ovaltine, and one of them says if you can read this, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Because I didn't want to accidentally summon anything. If I'm going to do it, it's on purpose. Uh, and so then one of them I mossed up so that I had the alternative. But yeah, that 6x6 tile is about the biggest that I can fit under the arm of my Proxon by pulling it up while I slide through. I know I could make it taller, but I don't want to mess with Dad's machine and get in trouble.
Yeah, you can stretch it up just a little bit, but making it taller would need you would need to cut the metal arm in half and
I'd have
raise
to
it.
change the arms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really, I think Gerard Boom had mentioned at some point, but it sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, and if it was my Proxon, I might do it. It does not belong to me.
Okay,
Which makes it safer. I can't do anything to it.
okay. So just a second. So Earthman Brick, I'll continue digging that statue to the grave. Campaign terrain. I'm
But
really having to wrestle with all the puns.
oh yeah. Well, I haven't heard that one yet, actually.
Okay, and Mia gigged.
Oh.
Welcome to Punderdome.
Puns make me so happy.
Yeah,
I'm
I know,
gonna
right?
I'm gonna be so poor when you guys start collecting for the dad jar. I'm gonna have to offer to be like do something in trade. I'll be group. I would say group moderator, but that won't work. I'm a troublemaker too much for that. I'll just have to secretly send everybody else my puns to say. There we go.
Okay, Tina is saying stretch the arm and put a piece of foam under it. That works. Yeah, but you can
That's kind.
it
Yeah,
only
that's
go
kind of
for
what I did. I just pulled it
a
up.
small amount. Yeah.
Got about an inch. Because 5 was the closest I could get, and I wanted it to be 6, so I pushed it to 6. Because like with this one, I couldn't make this one all in one piece. So this one I had to do in a couple and then stick stuff through to hold it together because it was just too big. But
Okay, Earthman Brick. Panderdome. Two meanings enter, one pun leaves.
we're
Yeah,
onto something with that.
yeah, that we've been thinking of introducing a dad joke jar or a pun jar. It's like a swear jar, but instead of you put $1 in when you swear, you put dollar in when you make a bad pun or a dad joke, and we're kind of worried it might have its own GDP by the end of the week. So it's like, yeah, let's not do that yet.
I could alternate by really just cussing a blue streak every time I make a pun, balance it out. So yeah, there's my top-down shot
Oh,
showing
sorry.
most of the writing that I had carved in. Just I spent a lot of time carving runes into my builds apparently, and I enjoy it. I like making it say something. I used to actually know the runic alphabet, but off the top of my head, I don't know it anymore.
Okay, so one more from Stefano.
All right,
Oh,
back to Stefano. Yeah, he has a way of making his brass come through the paint job so well compared because he makes everything look like it's got that nice muted dirtiness, but there's still those parts that so not bright, but just shine through a bit. I love it.
yeah.
He's got such a nice touch.
And one other thing I like here is how he's using the light to make that eye work even better.
Yeah. Yeah, backlighting is so helpful, especially with a colored backlight.
Hmm. Good stuff.
Mhm.
So let's see. Oh, more from Meredith.
Me again. This was a secret Santa, so this was one that I couldn't share anywhere but here. So I did MDF sandwiching the granny grating so it couldn't slide out, and I did little bottle caps that I glued together and then just put hot glue in the top of. These were actually from broth containers, so they had little spikes sticking up, so it gave me something to sort of build the glue onto to give it a bit
Okay.
of a in.
Is
They
that
were they
is
were going to
that
be
is that
darker.
is
Originally, my thought.
sorry,
Sorry?
is that just glue or did you put something else to give the texture?
So that's just hot glue, and then I painted it. So once you've done the glue and it starts to set, if you go back and run your nozzle over it again, you can texture it.
Okay.
And then this is the next size up. These were slightly larger jar lids, and then I have the big peanut butter jar lid for the big one. And I originally, my idea was it was going to be sort of a Goa'uld factory thing. So these were going to be the roiling pools that maybe had symbionts in them. And then I remembered I had this really cool green color, and I got carried away making things neon green. And so then it became this poisonous goo thing that expanded out from there.
Oop.
Now, this does have stuff underneath it that you can't see any of it. Because of how big this was,
Mhm.
I filled the bottom with yarn and then poured hot glue over the top. And after the couple applications of hot glue, there was no more yarn coming through. So the yarn isn't actually giving any of that texture. That's all
It's
just
just to
hot
save on
glue looped
the
over
glue, yeah?
itself. But so it's not so heavy
Hmm.
because I had to ship it. So I by filling it with yarn, it was like a third of the
Ah, okay.
weight.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's one thing you have to think about when you're shipping stuff. It's like, how heavy is that going to be?
This package, which weighed less than 2 pounds, cost me $40 to
Whew.
send like 4 hours away. I could have driven it there myself if I could cross the border.
Huh.
So then this is some of my cans of ginger ale that I got specifically for this project that I then I didn't fill the inside of the cans. I figured what I would do is I would create this structure over the top out of card that I completely saturated with white glue so that it got nice and hard. And then after I sealed everything and painted everything, I then painted the parts of the can that aren't reinforced to look like the glass in the hopes that nobody is going to squeeze it by the glass. So as long as they pick it up either from the support posts that are wood or from any of the support cardstock, it won't crush. It'll be fine. If anybody picks up by the glass, they might be able to break it.
But even then,
So it arrived just fine. None of it shipped off in shipping, which I was thrilled.
glad to hear that.
And then that's a Final Faction gun that I just turned upside down and stuck in the middle. It's a mini gun that I on the underside of the stock, I added a little bit of cardstock pieces to make a little screen and keypad, and then a rhinestone to the bottom of the other bit to make a little light.
Okay.
And then I used straws, the bendy straws, for the connection from the pipe to the ground.
Okay, and this one?
Gave me that nice corrugation. That's another soda can, just stuck on top of a peanut butter lid that time, and then another Final Faction gun that I reversed, and then I cut part of the back off. And where I cut part of the back off, I just looped a bunch of string over it to make it look like cables. Upside down guns make really good panels. I added just some beads and wire to the back, or just string to look like wire.
Yeah, it's
And then I put
No, please go on.
Oh, and then I put a piece of cardboard to wrap from the top of the gun to the straw that I put so that you couldn't see where the two connected. I just wrapped a piece of cardstock around it and then put it to the container. And then that place where it connects to the container, I mimicked that design on the top of the other two that don't have anything connecting to them so that you could see how it could go from being that tank to this tank as a move through the process.
Okay.
Insert them into the different places, kind of an idea, maybe.
Okay.
Just because if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna overdo it. This is where my wax pencil came in real handy. All the rivets are little rhinestones for nail art, and having the wax
Okay.
pencil, you don't have to try and stab them to pick them up. You just touch them and then put them down. And the glue is stickier than the wax, so you don't really have to fight it.
I got you. All right. I only learned that wax pencil is a thing that exists like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, most guys don't know about them. Nail art doesn't come up much if you don't do your nails.
So,
And then my little flying ship.
okay, 1 second. Lucy collected us so if it's soda cans, yes, there's soda cans.
Yeah, ginger ale. And then my little flying piece. I was very pleased with this. This I did the least to. That is a Final Faction backpack piece. And the two pegs that are supposed to connect it to the back, I stuck the little, they're not pony beads, they're a different kind of bead that anyway, I put a couple beads on it and then used that to give it just a little bit of height, stuck it to the base, painted everything underneath black. I didn't add anything to that besides the beads to stand it up a little higher. Just painted it, called it a day.
Hey, simple jobs are the best.
Especially with what follows that I went way overcomplicated.
No
So
kidding.
I have one of them here.
1 sec.
This is one of my water filters. So it's just an empty, it's for my Brita pitcher. And when you're done, I ripped, there was fabric all the way around this. So you can see here, I ripped the fabric off. And that part's, sticky and nasty, but not really. It's just charcoal. And yeah, water filters. Excellent FAF. Sorry, that's the acronym my dad uses for future art fodder. The stuff that I collect. He calls it my FAF.
Okay, so Lucy Collected is asking, how do you keep the cans from flexing or being crushed? I mean, while you're working on them,
So,
I guess.
because it's a problem on the table if people pick it up. That was why I painted part of it to look like the glass. The cardstock reinforcement that I put on the outside is the only reinforcement to keep it from getting broken. But I think it's strong enough as long as nobody squeezes the glass part. It was originally all gonna be metal. I painted part of it glass just to make it that nobody would squeeze that part.
Okay. So we're going on this one. It was a water filter, and that's a clear glue stick, yeah?
Yeah, clear glue stick, and then I stuck my glue stick gun into the end of it to melt it, and then just put it straight down on top of my tea light, and then stuck the tea light up into the bottom of the filter, made a cardboard base to cover the bit that didn't fit, then built my little control panel, and I'm so pleased with my little control panel. I'd never done the little levers before, but those are just dress pins that I stuck in, and then once I had them both in the place I wanted, I flipped it over, put some hot glue inside, and they will never move. And yeah, and then when I painted them up, I painted little black lines above and below them so they look like they have little channels that they're moving in. And then the little the two bars are I took earring backs and glued them down, and I put a Q-tip between the holes in the earring back so that
Mhm.
I had tubes going through, and then capped it with little seed beads.
Good stuff. Oh,
And the finished tactical rat.
the tactical rat, and he's got a name now, yeah? Bernard.
He does. He is now Bernard. He has arrived at his new home. I knew if I named him, I was going to want to keep him. I'm going to have to make another. Bernard's going to need a brother. I was so pleased with how his eyes came out, putting the little white dots on so that they had that reflectiveness.
On the goggles, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good thing I'm not afraid of rats. So I don't mind making rats. And
Okay.
the only part that
Oh,
I
okay.
went back and took the wash off of were the glowing bits on the rat. I made his cable glow so that it wasn't all covered in the black.
Ah, just to make them
And then my
brighter,
setup.
yeah? Oh, this looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was my example of, because the person that I was making this for was just starting 5 parsecs from home. They didn't really have any terrain yet, and so their Santa wish list was something they could use as the centerpiece for a couple of games. So I made this so that they could mix and match to have multiple different locations available, so they could have lots of gameplay options, including the little flying ship that's not here. But I figured I'm going to give them a little flying ship
Yeah,
because
this is there, you know.
you need a hover car.
Okay, I see Dungeon Matron is heading out. Good night, Dungeon Matron, and thanks for joining us.
Bye, Lisa.
Yeah, she also dropped some stuff in the community showcase, which we'll get to later, eventually. This is a real nice set.
Yeah, I was so pleased with how the warp core turned out. The fact that the tea light worked made me so happy. I've never used a tea light in a build before. This is my first sci-fi build and my first ever using an LED.
Yeah, good job.
Also my first time using soda cans, technically, as yeah, but
All right.
lots of people pull that trick.
You know, boldly go and stuff like that.
Mhm. Though I like the idea of trying to fill it with expanding foam first so that they have stability. I might have to try that at some point. But you have to do all of the cans at once because you can't reseal them expanding
Yeah,
foam.
yeah. Once you open that, you have to keep using it or throw it away.
Mhm. It's like having a resin board. Prep everything before
Hmm.
you mix your resin so
Yep.
that you can then just go down the line and pour it all.
Okay, I have no idea
Ah,
what
yes,
was
and we
going on
talked
there.
about the really big Twinkie that was being, because of the Toxic Factory, really big Twinkie. Yeah, Ghostbusters.
Okay, so we've got
Oh,
Mia
this is
designing
that
a
cave
cave
setup.
set. I see someone else who likes planning. Okay.
It helps to plan when you want things to line up at the end. Yeah, yeah, going straight through the paper to the foam is a great way of doing that.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. Plus, drawing on the paper first means if you don't like it, you haven't scratched the foam that
Yeah,
needs to
good
not
point.
be.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Oh, this is nice.
That's so satisfying. Look at those little ripply edges of those caverns on the left. Oh, that's marvelous. I mean, the really nice clean lines on the right are good too, but there's something about that ripply cave wall effect that you can get with the prox on that makes
Yeah.
me very happy.
Yeah, and thinking about it, I mean, that's a pretty large chunk of foam to be freehanding, pretty much. Okay, you've got the line guidelines, but you're still maneuvering that whole block of foam around.
They're really more guidelines, though.
Ooh,
That's just that is so satisfying. Look how it all lines up just perfectly.
yeah, I'm just clicking through these because we've got there are
Mm.
more pictures of this at the end of the process, and yeah, they look magnificent.
Oh yeah, feel free, click through. Look,
Mm,
look at
nice, nice, nice.
that. I must say, seeing this is giving me a strong desire to do this for like a Paris catacombs kind of thing with all those skulls all the way down the wall. I apparently have a thing for skulls that I'm not realizing I quite went this far with.
Oh, hang on. Tina said regarding the expanding foam, you have to clean the part where the foam comes out with a cleaner. Then you can use the expanded
That would make
foam
sense.
over again. Oh, okay, good to know.
Really? Ooh, I'll have to
Thanks,
try
Tina.
that at some point. Yeah. Yeah, and the etching away of the cave walls on that. Oh, it's beautiful. This is such a beautiful table.
Yep. Okay, I see the changes in level there as well. The hollowing a bit out there, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
See, plans are helpful sometimes.
Say again?
Plans are helpful sometimes.
Okay, so we've got the lights going in those niches over there.
Yeah, some sort of chapel. I'm guessing braziers in the enclosure leading up to some sort of raised end. Yeah.
We have color, and I guess that's some texture over it.
Gonna have very fancy floors. Oh, that blue over those work beautifully.
Uh-huh. Ooh,
Paper cutouts for the win.
they work.
Oh, absolutely. It beats popcorn or M&Ms.
Ooh, stairs, I guess.
Ah, stairs. Nice. Everybody has to find a way to do stairs. That's one of the spots we all stop and go, stairs.
Ah,
Nice.
here it is.
Those stairs are very effective too. I like
Yeah, I mean, you can see the illusion when they're across from you, but over here ahead, they do a really good job.
Even across from you there, it still looks good.
What I'm saying is that if they're across from you, it spoils the illusion, but you can still tell they're stairs, so
Mm.
it's useful. But
Oh yeah.
the ones that are where you're facing them, that works really well.
Mhm. Absolutely. I love the giant D20 off to the side. Yeah, that's such a cool build.
This is
I don't do anything in that scale. Everything I do is scatter. I do everything to be small and easily storable. I don't do any boards. It's so much fun to do something big, though. I might have to think about that. Donate it to the local game store.
yeah. Again, we always
Here,
got the
you
same.
can store this for me.
We always have the problem of storage. Beautiful
Oh
work.
yeah, with the columns added in there, that's beautiful.
Great job, Mia.
Yeah, such a nice job.
Okay, back to Steve, Earthman Brick, and I think this is the
The
video he
cracked
dropped
egg.
yesterday, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his technique on this is very effective. That definitely has that dry desert vibe to it.
Yeah, I tried a bunch of stuff for Crack Dirt, but the only thing that really worked for me was Crackle Paint, and that's pretty expensive just to be using it to base a lot of stuff with. That I think the system he came out
Yeah, I
with
saw
is
somebody the
really
other
useful.
day using gesso for it, but I don't know. They said they were mixing baking powder into it, I think. But that's way easier and more effective to just sculpt it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if he's casting it as well. Okay, more.
There's that, yeah. Steve casts everything and then can make millions of them,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, at that point, hand carving, it's not nearly as big a deal.
Okay. More from Earthman Brick from his post-apocalyptic arcade.
This arcade, every time I see it, he's put in a new game. It's
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so cool. The pinball machines are great.
Okay. Evolution of gaming is that crackle paint? No, it's sculpted and customly put. He's got his a video about it which he put out yesterday on Earthman Brick.
I mean, I know it's from long ago, but I still the pool table and the air hockey table. I just those are so much fun. The entire little mini arcade. I never played some of the other games, and I played table hockey and pool and pinball. Oh, okay, here we go, Steve. Do the skee ball next. Skee ball was my game at the arcade. And it wouldn't be too hard, probably. I mean, depending on how big you had to make this. Oh, the circles at the end could be tiny.
Remind me, which one is Skibble?
So skee ball is the one where you stand at the end of a really long roll up and it has some circles at the end and you roll a ball and try and get it to go into one of the circles.
Okay, I have no idea what
It
that
might
is.
be an entirely just American thing. I don't know.
Okay, oh yeah, and he's got this Star
Oh,
Wars cabin
arcade.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so more from Recon.
Oh, yes, his black light.
Uh,
That really brings out the green against the red so well with that black light. So gnarly.
Jesus, that necrotic skin really looks necrotic. It's like,
Yeah, Sean's paint jobs are always very subtle, but so good. They just they come across so well. Definitely not somewhere I'd want to go at night.
yeah,
Yeah, that just I'd love it.
beautiful paintwork. Okay, oh, more from Mia.
Hey, right, dwarven pillars. Everybody's got them.
Okay, we could probably do a challenge about that. Non-dwarven pillars.
I like that.
Oh, I like the little. I don't know what you call them, but
Little support. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're nice
I
touch.
know there's a name for them at the moment. It's escaping me. Nice. Oh, I like the archway. Get those carved runes in there.
Okay,
And
so
the stairs going up around and over the top. So it looks like it's almost a carpet going up. Is it to cover the oh, I have words. Is it to cover the corrugation of cardboard being stacked together, or is it just an element for the extra design of the dwarven stair step look? It looks great.
okay, let's see. Campaign terrain. On the TCU Discord, Jonesy Dave is doing some in-depth crack dirt look experiments. Oh, thanks. I'll look that up. And let's see. Earthman Brick is telling us already done foosball table.
Not foosball, skee ball, skee ball. Foosball's good, but
Oh, sewage.
sewage. Oh, the sewage. Dungeon matron. Oh,
Yeah, it looks
marvelous.
sewagey. Yeah.
Oh, but she hadn't left. I want to know how she did it. I wonder if it's just resin poured with color in it.
No, I think
Or
it
she made,
just
oh, wait, I bet she took the whole thing of hot glue and put it in the oven. That strip that she made.
could be.
Maybe she melted the whole thing
Could be.
down.
We'll have to ask her. But
We'll have to ask.
yeah, the one she was doing yesterday really looked like bacon.
So to be fair, I mean, what else is sewage made of?
Yeah, I mean, bacon is definitely a component of sewage, so yeah. Okay, and the handle of the needle threader she was talking
Yes,
about, yeah.
yeah, the needle threader. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be a good thing to, unless you can get them in bulk or whatever. I think that could be a good thing to cast because it's a simple open cast. You could make thousands of those.
I want to say these are not an expensive thing to get. It's a real thin tin thing. I've never used that particular one. I always just threaded my needles. But yeah, I don't know how expensive they are. It's something to look into. Or just use it if it's thick enough as an impression and just press it real hard into the foam and leave the imprint of face, maybe.
You could. It's just that
Something to experiment with.
an impression would be pretty unusual. I think when you see something like that, would most usually be in relief. So since we're really used to seeing that, it might be a bit look strange. But yeah, I mean, you could it's definitely something you could try. Okay. The sewer tiles that Dungeon Matron is working on.
Yeah, yeah, getting that nice curl along the edge. Looking good.
Okay, I like that she's using the expanded polystyrene on this because she's using this to familiarize herself with the proxen.
Hmm.
And the thing she found with those Dollar Tree, is it vinyl rose or stuff?
It's some sort of plastic something. I haven't actually touched them myself, so I don't know.
And the thing is that that's a really good workaround because you can't really carve brickwork into EPS because it will just throw bubbles all over the place.
Yeah, but something like this over the
Yeah,
top is a great idea.
this is a really good solution for that. Ah, I see the
Hmm.
bacon sewage over the top.
Well, and I mean, this is the kind of thing that, as you were saying, with the EPS being the problem with carving, they make shelf liners out of all sorts of patterns and textures, and they're not terribly expensive.
Hmm.
So you could, I'm gonna have to see about doing some sort of like EPS base with shelf liner over it for the floor of something. See how that works? Because it should work in a similar method, and that really, yeah, that's not going to be a problem with the type of foam at all. And it makes such a great stone pattern on the bits in between because of those little bubbles. Sort of like the effect I got with the um, aluminum foil on my arch.
Hmm.
Yeah, that sewage color really looks good. That's yeah, that split pea soup color. Yeah.
Yeah, he said follow the yellow brick road, not the yellow road, not the yellow road, the yellow brick road.
There's bricks. There's yellow. What more do you want?
Ooh, tentacles.
Tentacles, obviously, is what we want. Yes. Ooh.
Oh, I like those eyes.
Mm, the waiting kraken.
I wonder if Mia sculpted these.
I don't know.
'Cause they
They
look like
look
might,
great.
might be sculpted.
All the little suckers are fantastic.
Huh. Okay. Here's some of Martin's root bees that were mentioned earlier. See if I can accept.
Mm-hmm. I love the mesh he's doing in the eyes of all of them. It ties them all together beautifully. Nothing else about them has to be the same, and you know they all
Uh,
have something.
and it's really interesting. I can see the. Oh, okay. Mia's Kraken is all handmade. Nice work. That looks really good.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I, I really love the textures that he's getting on with the green stuff as well. If you look around the face and the arms over there, those tiny scales.
And then contrasting with the lines around the horns being a
Mm-hmm.
totally different texture. Yeah,
Yeah, this is good stuff. It's nightmare
really
fuel,
blend
but it's
together
good stuff.
beautifully. Oh yeah, oh, I love the texture. And on the back there, yeah, where he suddenly goes into the bigger bits and oh. Yeah, he was showing us in the chat that one of the ways he's getting the textures is using his brushes that are old, the dead paint brushes that he's ripping all the bristles out and then using the metal ferrule
All right.
as the impression
Yeah, that makes
to get a
sense.
bunch of these little different shapes.
No, I love this one. Okay,
Yeah, that eye shield is just oh so cool. The whole thing is marvelous, but that part just jumps out at me every time.
yeah, and that's also a different kind of sculpting than what he usually does, and even on the breastplate of the armor and the neckguard, because he usually does very organic shapes, but here he had to pull off some hard surfaces
Yeah,
and
very
things like that.
smooth, very
Yeah,
straight.
did
Yeah.
a great job of that,
Yeah, totally different.
and I really like the whole concept of this thing. It's like an
Yeah, that seed pod for the head.
alien ostrich rider kind of thing. It's
Ah,
Oh, okay, this is the one who was working on yesterday. Let's see this one first.
Oh yeah. Oh, the spearman. Yeah. Such a dynamic amount of motion in the pose.
Oh yeah, that's another thing about all his models. They've all got this weight and movement to them.
Oh man, the legs that he sculpted onto this. That's just and the muscles of the calf and the dimples
Hmm.
around the knee. Marvelous. And then the beast, yes, with his chain.
I really like that chunk of wood that he found had just has kind of the it has the shape there already. Just oh yeah, I shall add legs to this.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of listening to sculptors talk about finding the shape that's already within the wood. And it's not that you pick what you're going to make out of this piece, it's you look at the piece and see what's
Yeah,
waiting to be revealed in it. It's very much that same kind of a method that I get from when he does these.
bit much. And the bad guy is also from the pistachio shell challenge from way back. So
Ah, it's a good day for the pistachios to come back.
indeed,
I wasn't around for that one, but I have a bunch of pistachios that I cleaned up in preparation to make some stuff with. So I'll shortly be pistachioing it up myself.
oh more from Tina.
Ooh, more cave stuff. Oh,
Okay,
that.
and
Again, I love her stairs. That's great.
yeah, this is a board she's working on for Facts. That's a convention that's is it in Belgium or in the Netherlands? Tina, I forgot which one. But yeah, it's in spring.
Nice.
Little huts. Ah, there's your skee ball machine, which I'm not too
Oh,
sure.
there's a skee ball machine. See, there we go. Why wasn't it in the arcade? It's my favorite machine. It should be. Because nobody else ever plays skee ball. I was always the only one.
Okay. Thanks, Tina. So Facts is in Ghent, in Belgium. So we have somehow worked our way to the end of the community showcase.
We reached the end?
We have reached the end of it, yeah.
Wow.
Achievement unlocked. Oh,
Oh.
okay, sorry. It's not Little Huts, it's Hagrid's hut. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Absolutely. I see it. Yeah. And that's where the pumpkin patch goes in the front door. Yes. Oh, yeah. Nailed it.
Okay, so that was really great work, everyone. Good
Yes.
stuff.
That was beautiful.
So Meredith, what do you say? Shall we call it a night?
Yeah, it's probably much later for you than it is for me. So yeah, I'd say probably it's a night.
Yeah, I mean, we've had you talking for about 3 hours here. I think you might want to give your voice a break or something.
Oh, I
But
suppose.
it has been a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun.
I mean, we can have you on again at another time if you like. So you're always welcome back. And of course, when we're doing
Absolutely.
the Danger Scatter Terrain Challenge, we're going to have call-ins. So yeah, since you have pieces in there, definitely call in and we can talk about them.
Absolutely.
And next week we'll be having Westboard Terrain on. So yeah,
Everybody come back to see Kim.
oh yeah, for sure. So Meredith, thanks again for joining us. Have a great week, and thanks
You too.
everyone.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And thanks everyone else in the chat for watching. You have a great week too. Bye bye. Wait, do you want to say do you want to say your thing?
Oh, well, roll for initiative.
Bye everyone, and thanks. See ya.